We had an incident in Washington, D.C. yesterday. Secret Service having to take down yet another shooter on the mall right across from the White House. We're going to give you the details on that story. We'll also talk to journalist Susan Crabtree, who covers the Secret Service extensively, better than any reporter in town. We're also going to touch base with Katie Pavlich, as well as Kevin Walling, and our drug czar, Sarah Carter. A whole lot going on in your nation's capital this morning, and we're going to kick things off with President Trump sounding off. He had a lot on his mind yesterday, and he let our colleague Hugh Hewitt hear it. Pour yourself a hot cup of coffee, O'Connor and Company, right after the headlines.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us from the SNC World Headquarters in New York. I'm Deontay Maroney with the top stories we're following at this hour. Iran claims that it had forced a U.S. warship to turn back from entering the Strait of Hormuz on Monday. The U.S. Central Command quickly denied that report of a missile strike. Zachary Goldman reports.
Fears of renewed military operations between the U.S. and Iran rose on Monday over the movement of ships through the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian state TV said on Monday its navy had forced a U.S. warship to turn back from entering the crucial waterway. The semi-official Fars news agency said 2 missiles struck the warship near the port of Jask, where Iran maintains a naval base. But U.S. Central Command quickly denied any of its boats had been struck. A senior Iranian official told Reuters that a warning shot was fired against a U.S. warship to prevent its entry into the strait. Reuters has been unable to independently verify the claims. The contradicting accounts come after President Donald Trump said the U.S. would start an effort on Monday morning to free ships stranded in the strait, calling it a, quote, humanitarian gesture. In response to Trump's announcement, Tehran told commercial ships and oil tankers to refrain from any movement that was not coordinated with Iran's military. CENTCOM on Monday said its destroyers had escorted 2 U.S.-flagged merchant vessels out of the strait, and that, quote, American forces are actively assisting efforts to restore transit for commercial shipping. Iran has blocked nearly all shipping into and out of the Gulf since it was attacked by the U.S. and Israel at the end of February. That closure cut off around a fifth of the world's oil and gas shipments and sent oil prices soaring by 50% or more. The United States and Israel suspended attacks on Iran 4 weeks ago, and U.S. and Iranian officials held a round of face-to-face talks.
In New York, I'm Deontay Maroney.
At this hour on SNC.
A look at today's top stories.
Reporting on today's biggest political headlines and breaking news.
That's what you need to know at this hour.
On Salem News Channel.
Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit LauraLikesGold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's LauraLikesGold.com. Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit LauraLikesGold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's LauraLikesGold.com.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags. And let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view. And now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-832-7865.
No safe spaces, no pulling punches. It's the Mike Gallagher Show.
Join us for a fast-paced, unpredictable, entertaining exploration of breaking news and what to make of it. The Mike Gallagher Show on Salem News Channel.
Politics, entertainment. This is O'Connor and Company.
From your nation's capital, good morning. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's O'Connor and Company. Buckle up. We got a fun show ahead of us. Starting at 7:05, we're going to check in with my friend, media superstar, and stalwart conservative voice in the movement, Katie Pavlich, now the host of her own primetime show on News Nation. Also, a friend of mine also who happens to be a Democrat strategist. In fact, he worked in the Biden White House. That's right. Republicans and Democrats can be friends. Kevin Walling, you probably see him on Fox News quite a bit. You're going to, hear him right here on this program coming up later this morning. Also, the drug czar, Sarah Carter, is going to let us know what the Trump administration is doing to make sure that your kids are safe and that the cartels are staying in their home countries where they belong. And finally, Real Clear Politics, Susan Crabtree. She covers the Secret Service like no other reporter in this town. She's won awards for it. She's going to give us the latest on yet another shooting, this one on the mall, across the ellipse, right in front of the White House, as the vice president's motorcade was going by. Exchange of gunshots, Secret Service and would-be assailant. That's all coming up this morning, but we begin with the President of the United States. It's funny when you do a talk radio show in Washington, D.C., you really never know who's going to call in. You know, Tom from Vienna, Marianne from Frederick, it could be anybody. And yesterday, Hugh Hewitt, who does a radio show here, got Donald from the district calling in. President Trump called in, and he had a lot to say, obviously kicking things off with the current military conflict in Iran. Let's start right there.
Last time you were on, you said to the people of Iran, stay the course, help is on the way. But they murdered 40,000 of them.
Yeah.
Do you want the people of Iran to come out yet? Do you want them to stay inside?
Well, look, the problem is that you can't, if you have 5 people with a gun and 250,000, the 5 people with a gun, assuming it shoots fast enough, which they do, the 5 people, they're going to win. They don't have weapons. They lost 42,000 to be exact, 42,000 people in about a 2-week protesters, innocent, unarmed protesters. They killed the wrestler. He's actually a world-class wrestler.
Yep.
They killed him and his 2 friends. They hung him from a crane in the square.
Well, they're lunatics.
So we're not dealing with, your typical people.
Yeah, the president obviously echoing the concerns. I think a lot of Americans have. I think that a lot of us were watching this military strike against Iran that began on the evening of February 28th, going into March 1st. And I think that we were thinking, okay, we kill all their leaders. We annihilate them, annihilate their military, and the people of Iran will now rise up like they did in January and take back the streets, take back their towns, and take back their nation. I think that there are a lot of expatriate Persians who live in America who were sort of saying that that's exactly what would happen, or at least hoping that would happen. It hasn't. It hasn't happened. And I think that it would go a long way for this effort if we saw that. Just, one little hamlet here, one little town or village there, where you start to see the people rise up and take over again, or even better, people who are in authority who have been propped up by this murderous regime actually defy orders, defy the people who are in charge of whatever that theocracy has become at this moment and say, no, I'm not going to turn my weapons on my fellow citizens. I'm not going to bathe the streets with Persian blood just because this failing regime has told me to do so. But that has not yet happened. But you heard the key point there from President Trump. They don't have any guns. I think there was an effort, I remember reading a story early on, that we attempted to arm some factions, Kurdish factions in the northern portions of Iran, some other, but they got intercepted. Those weapons got intercepted by the IRGC or by other members of whatever is left there of the authoritarians. And we haven't been able to arm those people so that they can rise up and they can take back their nation. And I would love, listen, I think the president is a great president, and I think that he's doing a great job with his America First agenda. But one of my hesitations about President Trump, even going back all the way to 2016, was that a lot of my internal conservative values that I hold deep in my heart, that I was raised with as a young child, thanks to my parents' guidance and thanks to my own education and learning about conservative principles versus liberal principles in this country, President Trump doesn't necessarily have that in his DNA. So he didn't instinctively take that moment to emphasize why this is how the Second Amendment is so critically important. This is why we need a Second Amendment in this country. Just look at what's happening in Iran right now, where the good guys are coming in. The cavalry has come in, killed all the leaders. They've depleted their Navy, depleted their Air Force, decimated their missile supply, all of their threats that they have against foreign powers and foreign nations. But if the people are unarmed, the people can't defend themselves. When the government collects everybody's guns and everybody's weapons and says, you don't need this, we'll protect you, we'll take care of things, this is what you get. And that would have been a great moment for the president to make that point. And again, it's not a criticism, but I was filling in the blanks as I was listening to this interview, saying, yes, thank you. Make the point about the Second Amendment. Make the point about our right to bear arms, because this is exactly what it's all about. And everyone who says, oh, but the American government isn't like the Iranian government. Well, guess what? The Iranian government wasn't like the Iranian government at one point. And that's why this sort of thing should never happen in America, because we hold dear to that right to bear arms. All right. And they continue the conversation about Iran, and then specifically about where things stand in the negotiations, if there even are negotiations, and what the president's red line is here, what he demands from whoever it is he's talking to on the other side. Here we go.
The thing that got the biggest hand, and you may have seen it on television, was when I said Iran will not have a nuclear weapon.
That was big. The bigger was when you said these people are lunatics, because they are.
I wanted to be nice. I actually said these lunatics will not have a.
Yeah.
I wanted to be a little bit nicer. I wanted to clean up my act a little bit. But I said these lunatics will not have a nuclear. Well, now I know you were watching. That's very
yeah. Well, that's who they are. I have got grandkids. I understand the stakes. These people cannot. They're fanatics. They cannot have nuclear weapons. You think the country understands the stakes, Mr. President?
Well, I think they do, because, again, this was a pretty big sample. I'll bet we had 35, 40,000 people outside of the room where I was speaking, where we had, I guess it holds 5,000 or 6,000 people. And then they had another room that was packed of equal size, and they had thousands of people outside. They all went crazy when I said, and now I said no tax on tips. I said no tax on Social Security for our seniors, no tax on overtime. And, that was great. But this blew it away. And then I see these fake polls that 32% of the public wants, meaning a lot more don't want. And I think they probably the way they, I could ask this question a lot of different ways, but if you just said to protect our country, to protect the world, I mean, look, the Middle East, Israel in the Middle East would be wiped out within the first hour that they had it.
So there's the president's red line. It's something that he's stayed consistent with from the beginning of this endeavor, and it's something that he's going to hold on to all the way through. Please don't listen to the critics in Washington, D.C., the talking heads on the shows featuring really good teleprompter readers with nice haircuts who tell you, oh, Trump's just going to end up with basically Obama's deal. With Obama's, understand something. Under the Obama deal, quote unquote, Iran continued to enrich uranium the entire time. The reason that they were so close to a nuclear bomb recently is because they continued to enrich uranium, even when they had a so-called nuclear deal. Not to mention the fact that they also got billions and billions and billions of dollars that they could then feed into their military and feed into the terrorist states that they supported, like Hamas and Hezbollah and the Houthis. That's not happening here. And the bottom line is President Trump is adamant that there can be no nuclear program left standing. Period. End of discussion. And he understands the stakes. The second they get nuclear bombs, our neighbors are wiped out in the Middle East. That cannot stand. All right. And then the next line of questioning had to do with what the Iran negotiators are like. Why is it so difficult to nail them down and actually see results? Here we go.
The one thing I will say is they talk a lot differently when they're talking to me than they talk when they're talking to the media or the television set. It's a lot different. You know,
their propaganda is terrible. Now, I was talking to Ambassador Orrin.
They're looking to do a job, and they get on television, they say the exact opposite.
Amazing. They're a lot different when they're talking to me than when they're talking to everybody else. And that's got to be maddening and frustrating for the president. This is a deal maker. And he's an optimist. He's a man who doesn't understand the word no when it comes to wrestling a deal from his adversaries. And so it's got to be maddening for him, knowing that a deal is in grasp, but knowing also that he's negotiating with, well, as he put it, lunatics. What do you do? What do you do when the guy sitting across from you, says, oh, yes, Mr. Donald, yes, we're very happy. We're going to go ahead and make this deal. Everything's going to be fantastic. And then the next minute, they're on television screaming that we're the great Satan and that they're going to crush us. And they put out a Lego video showing American soldiers, with their flesh getting burned off because of the great, mighty Iranian military that ain't so great and ain't so mighty anymore. The bottom line is, yeah, he's negotiating with lunatics, and lunatics don't want to make a deal because it makes sense. They want to destroy their enemies. All right, more from the president and this extraordinary interview coming up in just a moment. Keep it here. It's O'Connor and Company.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most sought-after anti-aging products available today. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle Magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags in as little as 10 minutes. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects will last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results.
Look at this one under-eye bag. It's gone.
I've tried it all, and then I found Plexiderm, and this happened.
The best news, in this super inflated economy, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95 and free shipping. So don't wait. Just call the number on your screen.
Call 800-826-0172.
Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit LauraLikesGold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's LauraLikesGold.com.
O'Connor and Company on this Tuesday morning, live from your nation's capital. Coming up, we've noticed a disturbing trend with Democrats these days pushing back on the federal government, federal ICE agents trying to, keep their sovereignty, trying to say that the federal government can't enforce federal laws in their neighborhoods or in their states. These states all standing up saying that they're sovereign states and the federal. Why does this sound familiar? Why do I have a vague memory in history class of Democrats saying the exact same thing back in the middle of the 19th century? Yeah, we've got secessionist Democrats calling for civil war, basically. And you're going to hear it right from the Connecticut state lawmakers. That's right. The South has risen again, but it's in the North. You'll hear that coming up in just a moment. But we continue here with this extraordinary interview. President Trump, wide-ranging, calling into the Hugh Hewitt show yesterday afternoon. And the issue of NATO came up. And whether NATO has been a big disappointment here in their response over this latest military endeavor. To remind you, NATO countries, our allies, wouldn't let us use our military bases, not their bases, our bases that we've paid for, populated, managed, ran, controlled for decades since we saved that continent in World War II. And when it came time for the strike against Iran, these governments said that we couldn't use our own air bases and their airspace for the endeavor. So, President Trump, how do you feel about NATO these days?
We spend trillions of dollars over a relatively short period of time on NATO. There was a time before I got here, we were paying for 100% the cost of NATO, not 80, not 50. We were paying for 100%. Now they pay more, and they also pay for we no longer lose money because they have the money. I say, you have to pay for it. You buy missiles, you have to pay for it. They pay for it. They probably then give it over to Ukraine to use, and Ukraine uses them well. But it turned out to be a paper tiger. And when we needed NATO, you have to remember, I hope you remember, you got a lot of people listening and watching your show. I hope you remember, when we needed NATO, they were not there for us.
Oh, I'm not going to forget that.
Yeah. And by the way, that came after a longer conversation about Ukraine and what we owe to that country and what we owe to NATO and the EU and what we know to President Zelensky. And Trump sort of buttoned that up with, let's talk about what our obligation here is exactly and how this is supposed to be a two-way street. You could make the argument that we have an obligation to help Ukraine, but don't they have an obligation to help us, especially when the military effort that we're doing in Iran ends up helping them and everyone else in the world? The fact of the matter is, these European countries like France and like England, they're not worried about their soldiers, their airmen, their Navy getting harmed or injured or killed in a conflict in the Middle East. They're worried about their own countrymen getting killed in their own streets. You see, because they've imported the Arab street to their downtown vectors, and they know that they've got terrorist sympathizers living in their own country. That's the deal with the devil that they've made, and that's what's keeping them paralyzed. The president's just calling them out on it. All right, while we're in Europe, let's talk about Pope Leo and the war of words between our president and the pontiff. Here we go.
I want the Pope to talk about Jimmy Lyon. I want you to bring him home. That would be a good deal.
Well, the Pope would rather talk about the fact that it's okay for Iran to have a nuclear weapon, and I don't think that's very good. I think he's endangering a lot of Catholics and a lot of people. But I guess if it's up to the Pope, he thinks it's just fine for Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
You could hear President Trump restraining himself because he knows that there's political fallout if he goes too hard on Pope Leo. So as a Catholic, I appreciate him just stating the fact and then moving on. All right. A lot of people looking at what's going on in Iran and what just happened in Venezuela at the beginning of the year. And they recognize that a lot of this is a demonstration for China to show them what we're capable of. And the president reminded everyone of that.
He's coming here in November or so. And we have a very good relationship. We're adversaries, but we have a very good relationship. When I took over, China was just ripping us like nobody's ever seen. And now it's the opposite. I mean, we're doing very nicely with China, but we do have a very strong relationship. And I think it's better to get along with China than it is to fight with China. And they feel the same thing. And don't kid yourself. They watched what happened in Venezuela. They watched what happened in Iran. Because militarily, Iran is essentially over.
Yeah, he's right. And just understand that a lot of the military equipment that's now at the bottom of the sea or sitting in a pile of flaming rubble was Chinese made, Chinese manufactured, same kind of equipment they've got that they're supposedly going to take over the entire Pacific Rim with. And we're standing in the way. China knows that. We know that as well. Extraordinary conversation with President Trump yesterday on the Hugh Hewitt Show. Nice job. Coming up, like I said, we've got the segregationist South rising in the North. Democrats basically calling for civil war against the federal government. That's coming up. But first, I want to tell you about Relief Factor. So many people living with everyday pain think that they're just stuck with it. It is what it is, right? But it doesn't have to be. I want to tell you about George from Oregon and his Relief Factor story. George is a hardworking guy, spends 10 hours a day in a garbage truck. It's a tough job, made even tougher because he was dealing with a sore right knee that wouldn't bend. But here's the amazing part. George started taking Relief Factor and it changed his life. He said, and I quote, "I can bend my knee again and with very little pain." You know, same thing happened with me after I ran my first marathon at my age last year. Took some Relief Factor, and about a month later, my recovery was complete. If you're living with aches and pains, see how Relief Factor, a daily drug-free supplement, can help you feel and live better every day. Give their 3-week quick start a try. It's only $19.95, and in a few weeks or even days, you'll feel the difference. Visit relieffactor.com or call 1-800-4RELIEF.
You're watching Salem News Channel across America.
From the SNC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Clay Osterly. Chance for severe weather today across the Mid-South through Dallas. Memphis, Little Rock is going to be included in that as well. And we're also going to see a chance of a couple of severe thunderstorms up across the Northeast from Watertown, New York, up to Burlington, Vermont. And both of these areas could see a chance for some tornadoes, some damaging wind, and some hail. But it will be more likely from Dallas up through Little Rock and into the Mid-Tennessee Valley. Now, we're also tracking a chance of some non-severe thunderstorms across much of the West, extending through the Midwest and into the Northeast, and also for South Florida. We're also looking at a chance, though, of some snow. Yeah, it is May, but it's still definitely possible up in the highlands, and we're seeing that across the Rockies, and even Denver, the metro area, could get in on the snow. We're looking at anywhere between 3 to 8 inches of snowfall possible at lower levels, with up to 24 in the mountains. I'm meteorologist Clay Osterly, Salem News Channel.
Watch weather.
Don't get left out in the rain. Get an accurate and personalized weather consultation for any event by scheduling a call with Storm Guides. Go to stormguides.live and schedule your call today. Storm Guides, the calm in the storm.
Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates.
If you want to defeat the narratives with the truth, our show is for you.
Every day, 1 to 3 Eastern, it's common sense for the American people. The Scott Jennings Show, only on Salem News Channel.
Larry O'Connor here on O'Connor & Company. Good morning. Coming up in a little bit, we're going to give you the latest on a shooting in Washington, D.C., right across the street. Well, really the backyard of the White House. Secret Service agents involved in that shooting, exchange of gunfire. We'll give you all the details on that. It happened, by the way, just as the vice president's motorcade was hitting the streets. Yet again, violence in Washington, D.C., but most importantly, violence directed at this administration, the Trump administration. This at a time, by the way, when the judge yesterday decided to apologize to the alleged assassin from the White House Correspondents Association. We'll get into those details as the morning develops. And as I mentioned before, Katie Pavlich is going to join us about 30 minutes from now. But first, we notice a trend here with the Democrats in this country. They just can't shake off their segregationist past. Now, of course, we know famously that Democrats really loved owning human beings back in the early 19th century. They just couldn't get enough of slavery. They stood in the way of good Republican, Christian, faith-based arguments against enslavement of Africans brought here against their will. The abolitionist movement, rooted in Christianity and faith, was stymied at every turn politically by the organized Democratic Party. They called themselves Democratic Republicans for a little while there, but they shed the Republican part because they realized that even they couldn't fool anybody. And then the Republican Party rose under Abraham Lincoln. He won the presidency, and the rest is, well, very much history. That's the party I align with, the ones who were interested in freeing those enslaved Africans and actually keeping our nation united as the perfect, more perfect union that was envisioned by our forefathers. Democrats, not so much. The secessionist South has risen again, indeed, but it's everywhere. Democrats are in charge, and that means mainly in California and in the North, ironically. Take a listen to this lawmaker, a state lawmaker in the state of Connecticut. Connecticut, one of the Constitution state, one of the states that sent their young men to fight with the Union Army, the United States Army, to tamp down the secessionists of the South. Connecticut now represented by this guy, and the new means of secession, the new means of trying to express Connecticut sovereignty from Washington, D.C. Well, it has to do with Washington, D.C. daring to send federal agents in to enforce immigration law. Everybody knows that the federal government is responsible for the protection of our borders and the enforcement of immigration law. There's no gray area here. Court after court after court after court over the centuries have affirmed that it is the federal government's responsibility to enforce our immigrations and customs laws. Hold on. Immigration and customs enforcement. Immigration's custom. We should have a federal agency that does that sort of thing, right? I got it. We can actually call them Immigration and Customs Enforcement, or maybe for short, we could call them ICE. Yeah, that's what we have. And by the way, this is an agency that was created in many respects by Democrats in the House and the Senate. ICE does just that. They enforce our immigration laws. And here's a Connecticut lawmaker wanting to protect his state's sovereignty from the federal government when they actually enforce those very immigration laws. Here we go.
We are sovereign in this state. This is the sovereign state of Connecticut. That is why we have a state Supreme Court. That is why we have state laws. That's why we have a capital. That's why we have a legislature, a governor, an attorney general, constitutional officers, because Connecticut gets to decide how Connecticut wants to live. And we get to pass laws to reflect our values and how we want to live. And we get to pass laws to keep our people safe. That is an unremarkable proposition of constitutional law. It is called the police power. It has been around for 250 years, and even before that. It is a power that states have as sovereigns. We are joined together by our consent in a federation known as the United States of America, right? A federation of 50 sovereign states. And we have never, ever, ever delegated to the federal government the right to hurt people in our state.
The right to hurt people in our state. They're enforcing the law. That's the Attorney General. His name's William Tong. And that language that he was employing right there could have been ripped from an Attorney General in South Carolina trying to defend their unique custom, their peculiar tradition of owning slaves. Oh, you may quibble about whether we should have slaves or not, but what you can't argue with is our sovereign right to do so. We're the sovereign state, 50 sovereign states. Are you joking? Police powers? I mean, see, here's the problem. You're right. Every state has their own unique police powers to enforce the laws of their state. These aren't state laws. These are federal laws. This argument goes back to the earliest days of our constitutional republic, and it's been settled law. Is Connecticut going to enforce immigration laws? That's the irony here. Because when the federal government asks state police or local police or sheriffs or what have you to hold in custody and retain an illegal immigrant criminal that has already violated state law, state police actually has them in custody. Their federal law enforcement brothers say, hey, that guy violated federal law too. Just hang on to him for 48 hours. It's called a detainer. We'll come and get him, and then we'll process him for violating federal immigration law. And Connecticut defies that. They give the middle finger to the federal law enforcement and the federal government, but of course, only if a Republican or specifically Donald Trump happens to be running the executive branch of that federal government at the time. And then they claim that they are a sanctuary for all of those people who violate federal law. It's asinine. And it's cessation talk. That's who these Democrats are now. There is no sovereign police right at the state level to decide not to allow federal law enforcement to enforce federal laws in those states. There's no splitting hairs here. But this is what we've seen play out in state after state after state. Good Yankee states that fought with the Union and fought under Abraham Lincoln's command. These states like Connecticut, like Massachusetts, like New York, like Minnesota, who sent their boys to bleed in the pastures of Virginia and Georgia on behalf of the idea of our Constitution and our federal government and our founders' vision of that more perfect union. They are now using the same rhetoric. The same rhetoric, by the way, one can argue, to protect the new slaves that they enjoy exploiting. Let's be clear here. These illegal immigrants who have come into this country, they tell us that they've come here for a better life so that they can make more money because of the economic hardships they have in their home country. They won't actually say that officially on the record. Officially on the record, when confronted, they'll say, oh, no, I seek amnesty. I seek asylum. I'm being persecuted. And they're not actually persecuted in their home country. They just want a job. And when Democrats try to defend illegal immigration in this country, what's the first thing they say? Well, who's going to pick our vegetables? Who's going to clear our tables and wash our dishes at our restaurant? Who's going to make the beds in our hotels? Oh, that's not work we're going to do. Those aren't jobs that an American will do. And set aside the fact that they're also bringing in people to take jobs, in engineering and in various other technological respects. You hear those stories all the time. They'll tell you it's about picking vegetables and the fact that Americans won't do these jobs, but then they'll celebrate the dreamer who is the valedictorian and just got accepted to Stanford when your American citizen child, their application was rejected. But forget that hypocrisy for a moment. Go back to protecting those cheap paying jobs like picking vegetables. Where have I heard this before from Democrats who were claiming their sovereignty from the federal government and their ability to have their peculiar tradition of having exploited labor working in the fields for agricultural purposes. Amazing when you think of it that way, isn't it? Connect the dots here, and you see that this language from this attorney general in Connecticut is a very short hop, skip, and a jump to the exact kind of secessionist language that we heard that led up to a civil war. That's why the courts have gotten so involved in this, and that's why the courts have backed up the federal government enforcing these laws every single time they've been challenged. And Democrats tried to hold up funding for the Department of Homeland Security, famously, for the third time in 12 months. They shut down the federal government. That's why you were waiting in line for so long at TSA. That's why we had such a log jam for getting your passport or any other aspect of the Department of Homeland Security. We had troubles with air traffic controllers. We had a ton of issues, and the Democrats didn't care. They wanted to hurt Donald Trump, and they claimed that it was because they wanted to make sure that ICE wasn't funded so that they wouldn't wear masks in enforcing the law. Now, Republicans have figured out an end around that. They've actually funded Department of Homeland Security except for ICE and the Border Patrol, and now a reconciliation package that won't need one Democrat vote is making its way through Congress, and that'll be complete. They won nothing here other than to cause pain and hardship for you, which is good for them, you see. If you're angry, if you're annoyed, if you have a rougher life right now because they've shut down the federal government and it's made your life a nightmare, that helps them. They're running for election. They want to win, and the best way for them to win this November is for you to be angry. So they're doing whatever they can to make you angry. But this has been fought. It has been won by Republicans, and ICE will continue to do their job. They will continue to conceal their identity so that radical left-wing would-be assassins can't wreak havoc on their lives and attack their families. And every single time the federal government's sovereignty in enforcing immigration laws has been challenged in a court, in a federal court, the Trump administration has won. But this guy, this attorney general, the governor of Connecticut, Ned Lamont, who signed this legislation restricting ICE in Connecticut, they don't care. They will continue to defy the law. They will continue to defy the courts. And then they stand up and talk about their sovereign right as a separate sovereign state in the federal government. It's reminiscent, to say the least. And it's rogue, and it's illegal. And I'm glad I'm on the side of Lincoln. I'm glad I'm on the side of the Constitution. I'm glad I'm on the side of law and order. Democrats, not so much. But open your ears, everyone. Make sure you hear what they're saying. They're telling you just who they are. It's O'Connor and Company.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
It makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt.
They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags, and let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view, and now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-832-7865.
You're watching Salem News Channel across America.
Good morning, Larry O'Connor here on O'Connor and Company. Yesterday, we had more violence in Washington, D.C. Now, listen, if you live in the District of Columbia, sadly, we're used to gunshots being fired. Although I got to say, it's been much better since the summer of last year when President Trump utilized the National Guard and other federal law enforcement to actually bring order to the District of Columbia, to your nation's capital. During the Biden years, it was horrendous. In fact, I want to talk about that with Katie Pavlich coming up at the top of the hour. As a young woman working in Washington, D.C., it's harrowing for someone like Katie and for even staffers on Capitol Hill to have to dodge bullets on a regular basis. Thank God President Trump has actually made Washington safer again. But yesterday, we had more shots fired, this time on the National Mall, right near the Washington Monument, across from the Ellipse, which is basically the White House's backyard. And this time, like we saw less than 2 weeks ago at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, these gunshots, it appears, may have had something to do with a political justification and hostility, murderous anger at the Trump administration. In fact, as the Secret Service was cordoning off the area after they had exchanged shots, we actually have video footage from Nick Sortor, independent journalist who captures some great guerrilla video, actually caught President J.D. Vance's motorcade as it went by the aftermath of this shooting. Washington Post wrote up the altercation. Here, let me tell you how they break it down. White House was briefly locked down Monday afternoon after a U.S. Secret Service officer exchanged gunfire with an armed individual nearby. The person, whose identity was unknown, was shot about 3:30 in the afternoon at 15th Southwest and Independence Avenue, right near the Washington Monument, shortly after Vice President J.D. Vance passed by in a motorcade, according to the Secret Service. Secret Service Deputy Director Matthew Quinn said, "Our plainclothes officers and agents that consistently patrol the outer perimeter of the White House complex identified a suspicious individual that appeared to have a firearm. Uniformed officers approached the individual, who tried to flee on foot before firing at the agents," Quinn said. They fired back, and the person was struck and taken to the hospital. So let's just be clear here. Secret Service doing their job, checking this guy out, casing him, and recognizing that this guy is suspicious, looks like he's armed. He starts to open fire on Secret Service agents. Not a good idea, boys and girls. He ends up getting neutralized, as they like to say, and sent to the hospital. But once again, if you're armed in the vicinity of the White House, Secret Service identifies you as a potential threat. And let me just be clear. When the Secret Service identifies an armed individual adjacent to the White House as a potential threat, they don't mean this guy might carjack a Tesla. This guy might not, mug some family from Des Moines as they're trying to visit the monuments. When the Secret Service identifies you as a threat, it means they see you as a threat to the president, the vice president, whoever their detail happens to be protecting. In this case, they were preparing the way for the vice president's motorcade. When the Secret Service identifies you as a threat, it means they think you're a threat to the president and the vice president. This was yet another threat, violent, would-be assassination threat to the chain of command of the Trump administration. Washington Post goes on. He said it wasn't clear whom the person may have been targeting. Yeah, sure. We're patrolling the area, and every site we do 24/7 hardcore, Quinn said. Whether or not it was directed to the president or not, I don't know, but we will find out. Yes, of course, it's an ongoing investigation. Around 3:45, the Secret Service evacuated some members of the media from the White House's North Lawn to the briefing room. Ryan Naif, 21, and his mother, Amanda Naif, 47, who were visiting from Vermont, were taking photos by the White House when they saw Vance's motorcade pass. Then 5 or 6 gunshots rang out. It was just every officer, every car in the area was flying down in that direction. We were just really confused. DC police said it was investigating the scene of the shooting, and that area roads would be closed for several hours. That was yesterday afternoon. Just another day in Washington, D.C., but that's the problem. Just another day in Washington, D.C., with yet another would-be assassin trying to take out this president and or the vice president. I doubt this guy knows whose motorcade is whose. But listen to the eyewitness here, Ryan Naif of Vermont. It was just every officer, every car in the, let me start that again. They were taking photos by the White House when they saw Vance's motorcade pass. Then 5 or 6 gunshots rang out. This guy was casing the joint, watching a house, waiting for somebody to come out. It just so happens instead of your house or my house, it was the White House. And he was looking for someone in a motorcade. And that's when the Secret Service neutralized him. How more of these incidents do we have to have? And by the way, at the exact same time this sort of thing is happening, you could have turned on any cable news station for the most part, at least 90% of them, and seen someone from the president's opposition party calling the president a fascist or Hitler, calling J.D. Vance a fascist or Hitler, othering them, dehumanizing them. And, if you get a daily dose of that and it's all you see, at some point you might think to yourself, if you're a little unhinged, just a little, and let's face it, if you're watching some of those left-wing cable news channels like MS Now or CNN 24/7, you might have a bit of a screw loose. Fact of the matter is, you may watch that and think, my God, these people are a danger to our democracy. We may never have another election again, because that's what they hear from people in authority. And then they want to take matters into their own hands. At what point will some responsible parties in a corporate C-suite step in and tell their hosts, tell their producers, tell their daily news anchors to stop with this madness before somebody gets killed? At what point? Katie Pavlich is going to unpack a lot of this stuff coming up in just a few moments. First, though, have you ever been in a bad relationship? The kind that just wears you down, you settle in, even though deep down you know it, and this isn't how it's supposed to be. That's what daily aches and pains can feel like. You stop expecting to feel good. You start thinking, maybe this is just life now. Well, it doesn't need to be that way. With Relief Factor, you can break up with pain, just like Anthony did. He wrote in and said, I was dealing with debilitating pain and fatigue. I've been taking Relief Factor for about 2 months, and now I'm back to running my business, fishing, gardening, doing the things that really matter to me. And I had the same experience. I ran the Marine Corps Marathon last year, and I had aches and pains, but a month of Relief Factor put me right back on my feet. Relief Factor is 100% drug-free. It targets the inflammation that causes pain so you can move better, feel better, and enjoy life. Try the 3-week quick start for just $19.95. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4-RELIEF. Break up with pain and get back to what matters. 800.
At this hour on SNC.
A look at today's top stories.
Reporting on today's biggest political headlines and breaking news.
That's what you need to know at this hour.
On Salem News Channel.
You know, speaking of that Connecticut lawmaker calling for secession because he hates DHS, a JV in D.C. tweeted to the show, and you can tweet the show too at Larry O'Connor, said it was a Connecticut lawmaker who spearheaded the formation of DHS and ICE. That was Senator Joe Lieberman. Great point, JV in D.C. 100% accurate. Yesterday in Washington, D.C., we had some leadership from the Metropolitan Police Department called out and dismissed, potentially arrested, for cooking the books on crime statistics, saying that things were rosy, peachy keen here in D.C. We're doing great with violent crime back when violent crime was rising. We're going to break that down and a whole lot more with the great Katie Pavlich coming up right now. So pour yourself a hot cup of coffee as we venture into hour 2 here on O'Connor and Company. First, though, the headlines. Stay right here.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us from the SNC World Headquarters in New York. I'm Deontay Maroney with the top stories we're following at this hour. U.S. forces are firing on Iranian boats as they work to reopen the Strait of Hormuz. The military says 6 Iranian vessels were sunk during the operation. The United Arab Emirates, a key U.S. ally, says it was also targeted in a separate attack on Monday, the first since the fragile ceasefire in early April. Officials say 2 American-flagged ships have now safely transited the strait. Iran's foreign minister is warning the U.S. and UAE not to be dragged back into conflict. Tennessee Republicans are considering a major redraw of congressional districts, targeting the state's only Democratic-held seat in Memphis. Governor Bill Lee has called a special session to take up the plan. The proposal could split up a majority black district, potentially shifting a political power ahead of the midterms. Lawmakers are pointing to a recent Supreme Court decision that limited how race can be used in drawing districts. Critics argue the move could dilute black voting strength in West Tennessee. The U.S. military has carried out another deadly strike in the Caribbean, targeting a boat suspected of drug trafficking. Officials say 2 people were killed in Monday's attack. The strike is a part of a wider campaign launched by the Trump administration, which has killed at least 188 people since September. The operations have recently intensified, even as the U.S. remains engaged in the conflict with Iran. An explosion at a fireworks plant in central China has killed at least 26 people and injured more than 60 others. Authorities have detained the person in charge of the company as they investigate what caused the explosion. For real-time updates, download the Salem News Channel app and follow us online at snc.tv. In New York, I'm Deontay Maroney.
At this hour on SNC.
A look at today's top stories.
Reporting on today's biggest political headlines and breaking news.
That's what you need to know at this hour.
On Salem News Channel.
Listen up, America. We're about to lose the AI arms race, not because of code or chips, but power. AI runs on electricity, and we don't have enough of it. China gets this, building power nonstop while we shut ours down. For years, Democrats canceled pipelines, blocked drilling, and attacked fossil fuels, the very energy AI depends on. That's changing under President Trump, but the fight isn't over. No power means no AI, no progress, no edge. Get the free report now at oilfacts.com. Oilfacts.com, powered by Prairie Operating Company.
Scammers are stealing more money from older Americans than ever before. They're wiping out seniors' life savings, retirement accounts, and financial security. For older Americans and their families, the impact can be devastating. But we have the power to stop these criminals. AARP is fighting for bipartisan common sense solutions to protect older Americans' hard-earned money from scammers. Join us today.
Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit lauralikesgold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's lauralikesgold.com. Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit lauralikesgold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's lauralikesgold.com.
Red, white, and bold. No filters, just loud and clear. Where heavy hitters come together. Live, coast to coast. Uncensored, unwavering, unstoppable. Salem News Channel. Across America. Politics, entertainment. This is O'Connor and Company.
From your nation's capital, Washington, D.C., it's O'Connor and Company. I'm Larry O'Connor. Thanks for tuning in today. You know, one of my oldest friends and colleagues in this media business has now become a huge primetime network news anchor over at News Nation. The show is Katie Pavlich Tonight, and shockingly, it's hosted by my friend Katie Pavlich, and I'm so honored to have her this very first day of the show. Katie, thanks for joining us today.
Great to see you, Larry. Thanks for having me on.
I mean, it is true. You know, part of the conceit of O'Connor and Company is that I am lucky enough to sort of be in the orbit of so many incredibly popular and important voices in Washington, D.C. And we have known each other for, good God, like 16, 17 years now?
At least, yeah. 16 years, I think. Maybe 15, but almost 2 decades, which is a lot.
How's that? What were you, 10 years old when we met, Katie? How's that possible?
Pretty much, yeah. It was 10, yes. I was a wonder child.
And always everybody's career path, really, of people who are really doing important stuff right now, all intersect through Andrew Breitbart. That's how we first met, of course. Indeed. And why don't you know, before we get into the news of the day and the stuff that's going on, just reminisce a minute, because you did start so young, right out of college, and immediately at Town Hall, where you were for so many years, part of the Salem family of media sites. How did you get into all of this?
So I went to a Young America's Foundation conference in college, and that's where I first met Andrew Breitbart. And I was in the middle of shifting my career focus in my major. So I then switched to broadcast journalism as my major, and then decided after school to move to DC. I moved to DC the summer between my junior and senior year and did an internship at Town Hall. And then I came back and started working there full time and dove, right in. I always tell young people, if you want to work in media and journalism, DC is the place to be. There's always something happening. There are so many government agencies you can cover. Every nonprofit that has it, worth its salt has an office in Washington, DC. So I came here, in 2010, and I've been here ever since. And I've covered a lot of stories along the way. As you know, I had a wonderful run at Town Hall for 16 years. And now I'm at News Nation. So, and it was an amazing time. We covered so much, like Supreme Court hearings, nominations, 2 impeachments, many presidential, everything happening every day. So as you know, DC dog years, one feels like 7. So I feel like I've been here for almost a century, but it's been fun.
You've been such a dominant television presence, and of course now culminating, at least for now, with your primetime program on News Nation, Katie Pavlich Tonight. But I don't think everyone really realizes how much work and effort. Anybody who asks me, it's like, oh, Katie Pavlich, TV. No. Katie Pavlich is a hardcore journalist, and you work with so many young writers at Town Hall. And now you're the chair of the National Journalism Center's board of directors.
Yeah.
So you're bringing a whole new generation of journalists in.
Yeah, the National Journalism Center, and you're a board member there, Larry, as well. And as you know, we do amazing work to get journalists into DC in the summertime and throughout the year. But we put students inside of real newsrooms to do real work, and then on Fridays they get education and a skill set at the National Journalism Center, hands-on. Jeff Ingersoll, of course, is in charge of that. He's doing an amazing job. He's a Marine, so he's getting everybody whipped into shape.
Right.
But it's a really thing for us to be doing, because as we see with media coverage, the first draft of history, of American history, is written usually by newsrooms, and their newsrooms are filled with people who don't really like America that much. So we need more people who love America to be in Washington, where the government is seated, where the White House is, where Capitol Hill is, where the Supreme Court makes very big decisions about lives of Americans outside of the Beltway, to tell the story of what's happening inside their capital city. So that's what we're trying to do in placing those newsrooms.
So quick plug then there for the National Journalism Center for any young people out there who are looking to pursue a career in journalism, or parents, grandparents, godparents, aunts and uncles who know they've got a kid who have a nose for it. There are jobs here for those voices that are center right. There's job placement that can be done through National Journalism Center. Just reach out, and Katie and I will be able to help those kids grow into the business.
Great opportunity. There's a lot happening, especially now with no shortage of stories to cover.
Let's get to the news, actually, because I know you have to put a rundown together every night at prime time. We do the same thing here in the mornings, and crime is such a dominant story here in Washington. And of course, I know you present it in such a way that here's what's happening in the nation's capital, but it is certainly a domino effect and a ripple effect across the country. We're no different than any major metropolitan area. What is the latest here on DC crime? Because we were told by all the politicians that there'd been a drastic reduction in crime over the years, even though we saw with our very eyes the opposite.
Yeah, right. So there actually has been a reduction in crime since President Trump brought in the National Guard and started cleaning up the streets. So there's still things that happen. There's still shootings in Navy Yard. We still have young people who the system doesn't want to prosecute as adults running wild on the weekends, especially now that it's the summer. But for years before that, as you mentioned, we were seeing these shootings. People are getting stabbed at Union Station in the middle of the day. There were 3 to 4 carjackings every single day in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
and
forget about being the nation's capital. We were the carjacking capital of the country. That's what we were.
Also the world, which is really embarrassing. And the thing that does set D.C. apart is that Washington, D.C. belongs to all Americans. This is the capital of the country. People should be able to come here with their children and to see the national monuments and to visit the White House and to petition their government without fearing that they're going to get injured or hurt or beat up on the street by these criminals. And the DC government and the DC police force for years was cooking the books on the crime stats. They didn't have a crime lab for years because they were so incompetent in handling evidence. There was no crime lab, so therefore you couldn't really process evidence properly, and therefore, you couldn't really prosecute criminals in the city, and they were just let right back out on the streets. And now we're finally seeing that there was an internal investigation, and many of the people who were cooking the books on that crime are going to be fired and potentially prosecuted, depending on how, what they did.
They would mischaracterize felonies and violent crimes, and they would come up with different euphemisms to categorize these crimes to make it look like the violent crime in Washington wasn't as bad as it was. And it was for purely political purposes?
Yeah, purely political purposes, to claim that this was a safe place to come and that Democrats in the city were in charge and that they had it under control, when very obviously just walking outside on any street in the city, it was dangerous. Absolutely. Everybody, you and I know people who were beaten up on the street with their kids, even horrific.
And sexually assaulted. It really has been a horrible scene.
It was absolutely terrible. But it's better now, thanks to the National Guard and the president saying it's going to be a nice city. It's the capital of the world. We have people coming here from all over the place. We need to be proud of the city, and it needs to be safe for people to walk around.
I am cognizant of the fact that we just spent a few minutes telling young people, come to DC. We've got jobs for you. And then saying how violent actually the last 12 months have been a remarkable turnaround.
Yes. I keep going around town seeing these fountains that I didn't know were fountains because they've just been broken. for 16 years. That has nothing to do with crime, but it does make the city better when these things are working. The Interior Department's doing a great job of going around and fixing things so that looks nice for the 250th anniversary of our amazing country. So I keep seeing a new one every now and then and go, oh, didn't even know that was a fountain. I just thought it was some statue. So it's been nice to see it cleaned up.
Katie Pavlich, News Nation, is our guest this morning. And Katie, hopefully this won't be a one-off. We want to have you on a regular basis here because
absolutely.
News Nation is really dynamic. You're growing. I know your colleague Leland Vittert is going to be joining us, I think, later this week or early next week. And I'm a big fan of his work as well.
Yeah, he's great.
On the crime issue, people used to always say, oh, go to Northern Virginia. It's safer. It's quieter. You can own your gun and defend yourself because it's Virginia. Yeah, not so much anymore. And there's this prosecutor in Fairfax, Virginia, who seems hell-bent on releasing violent criminals, provided they were illegally in the country and born elsewhere. There seems to be two standards of justice here. Is that starting to take hold here with the voters in Virginia, that they've got a real problem?
I'm not sure if it's registered yet. Maybe now that these things are happening in the more affluent neighborhoods, like the young woman who's almost raped outside the Whole Foods in Clarendon, which is a very, very nice, expensive area, one of the most expensive areas in the country where a lot of the government workers, the career workers live, and people from the administrations, Democratic administrations. Jen Psaki lives in that neighborhood. Maybe they'll figure out that actually we should put these people behind bars. But you're right. I used to call Virginia the freedom side of the river. Not so much anymore. You have these prosecutors who will prosecute you for carrying a firearm in a park, even if you have a lawful concealed carry, but they won't prosecute you if you are attempting to rape young women outside of a grocery store because you happen to be illegal. I mean, there's a long list of the guys they let out of jail who then go on to kill other people. So I don't know what it's going to take for them to understand how serious this is, but it is a serious problem. And of course, Abigail Spanberger is now pushing new rules to not allow people with concealed carry permits to carry on public property. So what does that mean? You can't carry on a sidewalk, carry in a park. I mean,
what's the point? Yeah.
Senseless while emboldened and letting criminals out on the street, literally.
Katie, you've always been a sober and clarion voice from the right and incredibly appealing on television, and you communicate these ideas so well. I love talking with you. Thanks for joining us today.
Me too, Larry. Great to see you.
More to come. O'Connor and Company.
Do you suffer in pain? Are you stiff, tense, or less active than before? Introducing the EasyWell Remedy Massage System that combines the incredible effects of vibrational therapy, targeted deep tissue shiatsu massage, plus soothing infrared heat. A triple fusion of therapeutic experiences. Full body vibrational therapy increases blood circulation and reduces inflammation. Look at these beads moving from the powerful vibrational motors.
It's like 1,000 little fingers just vibrating my body from head to toe.
Infrared heat penetrates deep to reduce pain, soothe, and relax.
Remedy gets in there and helps deal with the source of the pain, so you feel much better.
The Ultra Shiatsu pillow with 6 infrared heated nodes mimics a professional massage. Plus, it's detachable for deep relief anywhere you need it.
It's just something that you're gonna have to feel for yourself.
Experience the true remedy for your pain and stiffness. Call now.
Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets. Physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit LauraLikesGold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's LauraLikesGold.com.
During the break off the air, we were talking about the Army-Navy game. I'm already hyped for the Army-Navy game, and it's not even summer yet. Naval Academy has their commencement going. By the way, Naval Academy in Annapolis has their commencement coming up at the end of this month, third weekend in May, or the weekend before Memorial Day. And I just want to tell you, a friend of this program, Hung Kao, ran for Congress in Northern Virginia, ran for Senate in Virginia. He was the Deputy Secretary of the Navy. He's now acting Secretary of the Navy. Think about that. Hung Kao, what a journey for Hung Kao, now acting Secretary of the Navy. And by the way, I'm seeing some speeches that he's giving and some social media posts he's doing. He's doing a hell of a job and really inspiring the entire brigade. He will be appearing, of course, at the graduation ceremonies and commencement and commissioning of all those new Navy officers at the United States Naval Academy. Their commander-in-chief, the President of the United States, will be giving the commencement address in Annapolis for all of those brand new naval officers and Marine Corps officers. But get this, Hung Kao, acting Secretary of the Navy, who will be delivering remarks introducing the President to the brand new officers. One of those 1,100 officers is Hung Kao's son. Just imagine this trip. Heather Hunter, our incredible executive, but can we get Hung Kao on the show sometime in the next week or so to talk about this? I'll ask him about the Navy as well. But honestly, think about being Hung Kao, a refugee from Vietnam, coming to this country as a refugee after the Vietnam War, being embraced by the United States of America, least we can do after the conflict in Southeast Asia. He grows up in Northern Virginia, goes to Thomas Jefferson High School, one of the elite high schools, or at least used to be before DEI overtook it. Elite high school in Northern Virginia, graduates, goes to the Naval Academy, graduates from the Naval Academy, becomes an explosive ordnance disposal specialist. These are the guys you're hearing about right now who are clearing the Strait of Hormuz of mines and explosives. I mean, he would dive underwater and disarm bombs with SEALs and Special Force guys. Rises to the rank of captain, enters a life in politics. Now he's the Secretary of the Navy, and his son is now graduating from the Naval Academy. That gives you chills just to think about. It's an incredible story, and I've gone a little bit off our plaid topic here. Let's get to some more events that happened in Washington yesterday. You know, the attempted assassination of President Trump at the White House Correspondents Association. Well, Cole Allen, the suspected assassin, appeared in court yesterday. And, well, it was a very sad day for the judge who oversaw the proceedings because, well, he was very concerned about the treatment of the man who would have slaughtered reporters and cabinet secretaries and innocent bystanders and, of course, the president of the United States. Magistrate Judge Zia Faruqi said that he was very concerned, had grave concerns about Cole Allen's treatments. He told the alleged assassin, "Whatever you've been through, I apologize for that." And what he's been through, yeah, apparently what's at being contested here is the fact that he's been on suicide watch, which means padded cell, 24-hour, confinement, because he told the officers when he was arrested that he didn't expect to live, which kind of makes sense because if you're walking into the ballroom where the president is surrounded by hundreds of armed Secret Service officers and you go in guns a-blazing trying to kill as many people, that's called suicide by cop. Obviously, he's a suicide risk. But now he doesn't want to be in solitary confinement. He doesn't want to be on suicide watch. And so he's complaining that we're trying to save his life. And the judge apologized for that harsh treatment. Our buddy Scott Jennings, who was on the program yesterday, reacted to this news on social media. As he said, a federal judge apologizing to a guy who tried to kill the president and countless others. Incredible. And by the way, I saw Jake Tepper, our friend Jake, yesterday suggesting that Judge Jeanine Pirro, the U.S. attorney, should recuse herself because she was in the room and she can't be unbiased in the prosecution. Hey, how about every reporter like Jake Tapper recuse themselves from reporting on this because they were in the room too? How could they be unbiased? Speaking of Judge Jeanine, she also commented on this on the X platform, said, "Welcome to Washington, D.C., where U.S. Magistrate Judge Faruqi believes a defendant armed to the teeth and attempting to assassinate the president is entitled to preferential treatment in his confinement compared to every other defendant." Unbelievable. But that is dovetailing off what Katie Pavlich just explained. That's law and order here in your nation's capital. It's completely upended. And one wonders if this guy tried to kill Biden or Obama, if the judge would be quite so apologetic. One thinks not so much. It's O'Connor and Company. Keep it here.
No safe spaces, no pulling punches. It's the Mike Gallagher Show.
Join us for a fast-paced, unpredictable, entertaining exploration of breaking news and what to make of it. The Mike Gallagher Show on Salem News Channel.
From the SNC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Clay Osterley. Chance for severe weather today across the Mid-South through Dallas. Memphis, Little Rock is going to be included in that as well. And we're also going to see a chance of a couple of severe thunderstorms up across the Northeast from Watertown, New York, up to Burlington, Vermont. And both of these areas could see a chance for some tornadoes, some damaging wind, and some hail. But it will be more likely from Dallas up through Little Rock and into the mid-Tennessee Valley. Now, we're also tracking a chance of some non-severe thunderstorms across much of the West, extending through the Midwest and into the Northeast, and also for South Florida. We're also looking at a chance, though, of some snow. Yeah, it is May, but it's still definitely possible up in the Highlands, and we're seeing that across the Rockies, and even Denver, the metro area, could get in on the snow. We're looking at anywhere between 3 to 8 inches of snowfall possible at lower levels, with up to 24 in the mountains. I'm meteorologist Clay Osterley, Salem News Channel.
Watch weather. Scott Jennings brings clarity to the toughest debates.
If you want to defeat the narratives with the truth, our show is for you.
Every day, 1 to 3 Eastern, it's common sense for the American people. The Scott Jennings Show, only on Salem News Channel.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most sought-after anti-aging products available today. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags in as little as 10 minutes. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects will last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results.
Look at this one under-eye bag. It's gone.
I've tried it all, and then I found Plexiderm, and this happened.
The best news, in this super inflated economy, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95 and free shipping. So don't wait. Just call the number on your screen.
Call 800-826-0172.
You're watching Salem News Channel across America.
Good morning, Larry O'Connor here with O'Connor and Company. And as you know, Democrats are all about affordability. Abigail Spanberger, she's the queen of affordability. She's the new governor of Virginia. And coming up in our next segment, we're going to tell you all about a brand new idea she's got to make life so much more affordable that it's going to cost you so much money to attain that affordability. More taxes, this time taxes on your exercise regimen. We'll get into that coming up in a bit. But first, I'm very excited to bring to your attention a man I call a friend and, sort of a friendly adversary when it comes to discussing politics. He is a Democrat. He has worked in the Biden White House and the Biden campaign, and he is my counterpart often on the two-way platform on Mark Halperin's morning meeting. He is Kevin Walling. I know a lot of you probably have seen Kevin in conservative media. Actually, you're sort of the conservatives' go-to Democrat, Kevin. Does that sort of make you, sort of the odd man out when you go hang out with all your limousine liberal Democrat elites?
I mean, the king and the queen were just here. Heavy the head that wears that crown to be the one of the lead Dems on conservative media. But it's a lot more fun. I'd rather spend a lot more time there than CNN or MS Now or what have you.
Well, you said that before, and I'd love to sort of peel that back a little bit from your perspective. And by the way, we are friends, and we do disagree on politics, but I think you approach politics in a reasonable and understandable way. Just with a different point of view. And that's what we're all about here. I don't try to convince you you're wrong. You don't try to convince me I'm wrong. We just try to explain where we stand on positions, so at least we get some understanding in this country. Why would you prefer to have conversations with conservatives and Republicans then go into sort of the echo chamber on those other channels?
Well, I think it's much more productive, right? And I think to your point, Larry, we've got to return to some semblance of, country first. We're all in this together. We may disagree, but we don't have to be disagreeable, to quote Jerry Ford. And it's also where the eyeballs are, frankly. You look at the ratings too. Fox News, this channel, O'Connor and Company, blows the competition out of the water when it comes to anything on the liberal side. So again, to be relevant in the town hall square of this country, it's where the conversations are happening.
Well, and right now that political conversation, Kevin, is really centering on the midterms. Now, I keep reading that it's going to be a bloodbath, it's going to be a blue wave, and I understand historically, certainly in the House, things favored Democrats, especially considering what a tight margin Mike Johnson is operating out of. But I mean, what do you think this is shaping up to look like right now this fall, from your perspective? What's your best hope, realistic hope, for the midterms?
Honestly, I would be happy with 10 seats. Again, any talk of this blue wave, I still have flashbacks to the red wave and the red mirage and all this kind of stuff. The seats are so now gerrymandered, right, that there's so little competitive seats, honestly, and we're still going to see what some of these maps look like. Obviously, action in Florida in recent days, some other states, potentially Louisiana, others moving forward. And again, there's just not that much real estate for Democrats to go on the offense when it comes to actually taking back the House. So I would be happy with just a couple of seats in this playing field, certainly.
Yeah, there's two sort of wild cards here as everybody's making their bold predictions about a blue wave or whatever's going to happen, and the Democrats taking the Senate. Some people still suggest as a possibility, which I reject entirely. The two elements are, first of all, in the House, what are the maps going to look like? And that's still in flux. Virginia, even though they did the referendum, that's still being held up by the Supreme Court. Yeah. So, I mean, that's a big element here, too. And then, of course, the candidates. I got to tell you, Kevin, most of the primary victories for Democrats right now, for the most part, Evanston, Illinois is one outlier. Maybe I think in New Jersey they had a different result. But for the most part, I'm not seeing Kevin Walling type reasonable Democrats coming through. I'm seeing Zohran Mamdani and AOC type Democrats coming through. Am I misjudging that, or are you concerned that some of those Democrat candidates are actually going to be pretty easy targets for Republicans?
Yeah, you and my mother are very upset that there aren't more Kevin Walling-like candidates out there running. But it is a concern, right? Again, it's always been the case that you run to the left or the right in your primary to win, and then you move towards the general. But I'm fearful of a number of candidates out there that have taken more extreme positions when it comes to the war on Iran, when it comes to other kind of socialist kind of mentality policies that are going to be much harder to defend come November. And politics is a game of addition, not subtraction. And we've got to win in some deeply red areas, some deeply purple areas in order to make that majority. That's why I'm such a big fan of the new Dems and the kind of center left Dems out there that actually know how to win and don't tie themselves up in primaries in positions they can't defend come November.
Well, Kevin Walling, I'm sorry, but you've just opened the door wide open to talk about Maine, because you had a center-left candidate who knows how to win statewide.
Anything you were going to pivot to Maine, my friend.
That's true. But you did open it up pretty wide. Janet Mills was the perfect candidate to run against Susan Collins. She knows how to win the state. She's been the governor. But she went down in flames against this upstart so-called populist, Graham Plattner. Again, everyone knows about the Nazi tattoo. There's also a lot of stuff in his personal life and his treatment of women that I think is still going to come out during the general election. And let me just say, I know you're not a big fan, but this is one of those states. Forget about purple. Maine's a blue state. This is a state you got to win and beat Susan Collins, and you had a chance, I think. But I don't know. I mean, everyone tells me the momentum is there and the excitement is there for Graham Plattner, but I just don't see it. Not when Susan Collins knows how to win in that state.
Well, she certainly does, and she's been at it for a number of cycles. I don't discount her ability to win this race. Certainly, she's representing the only state represented by a senator where Kamala Harris actually won that state in 2024. So it would normally be an uphill battle for any Republican. I think she's the last Republican even in New England in both the House and the Senate. But she knows how to win. She's lacing up those new sneakers. But to your point, Graham Plattner has captured this kind of populist Bernie side of the party that is fueling this campaign, raising record amounts of money. Right in the polls right before Janet Mills, the incumbent Democratic governor, before she stepped out, he was trouncing her by double digits in that primary. I think even like by 30%. In that same Emerson poll that is now a head-to-head race because we're in this general election now, Plattner's up 8 points, 7 points on Susan Collins. This is going to be one of the most expensive races I think we're ever going to see. And to your point, Larry, I think that the Republicans can win if they get out in front. We've talked about this before and define him early, like Janet Mills attempted to do unsuccessfully, because there is certainly a lot there with a guy that didn't necessarily think about running for office. You say and do a lot of things in your past if you're not being careful or calculated, like a lot of folks. So there's certainly a lot there for Republicans.
Yeah, I also saw a data point the other day that every time Susan Collins has run for re-election, she has run from behind, and she always figures out a way to win that re-election race. But we'll see. It's going to be interesting, and yes, expensive for a state like Maine.
She's lacing up those new sneakers.
That's right. That's right. She actually runs at about my pace, actually, but that's fine. As long as you finish the race.
My pace
that's
too.
what
I hit
matters.
40, and I just, give me the golf cart.
Kevin, what frustrates me about the Graham Plattner thing is that, listen, Republicans, I'm watching with a little bit of glee, a little bit of schadenfreude as you have to struggle defending this guy. And Republicans, we've been there, in 2010, famously, we had Todd Aiken, we had Christine O'Donnell, I am not a witch. And we've had some challenging candidates. But there's a big difference here. During that election cycle, every single Republican running for any office, whether it was for the House or for the Senate or for the governor, they all had to answer for Todd Aiken, right? It's like, Todd Aiken said this about abortion. Do you agree or disagree? Do you disavow this? I haven't seen the same kind of treatment from the media on every Democrat running. They should be hanging Graham Plattner around the neck of every single candidate, but it just doesn't happen. The media seems to not treat your candidates the same way they treat mine.
Yeah, potentially. I think that that bar is so much lower now as we go cycle through cycle. Again, the big hit on Democrats running in rural and red states was you're a Nancy Pelosi clone, and you got to answer for this San Francisco liberal out there and her policies in terms of the leadership of the House. And I just think we're so in a place where people are running their own races and not really tied to. They tried to do it. Republicans tried to do it with Zoran Mondami. Obviously, he's the number of times I got asked on Fox, is he the leader of your party? And I would say no, he's not. But again, I just don't think that works anymore in our politics.
Oh, just you wait. We haven't even started running against Zoran Mamdani. This is the first election since he won. He's literally a Marxist. Let's shift over to Michigan in the Senate race real fast, because everyone's been watching the Democrat primary in Maine. Michigan is remarkable. And the specter of Hassan Piker, who is a anti-Semitic, pro-Hamas, self-avowed communist, he regrets that America won the Cold War. He's been embraced.
Total dirtbag of a human being too, among other things.
Yeah. Well, thank you. But see, you don't. Yeah, you can say that, Kevin Walling, and still you're in the club for a while. But if you're running for office right now as a Democrat, and certainly you're Mr. El Sayed, one of the candidates for Senate in Michigan, he's embracing this guy.
Yeah, it's problematic. Again, I was at a dinner last night with a lot of Jewish friends, and we were talking about our fears of what we're seeing on the far left in our progressive politics, and also too what we're seeing on the far right in terms of the extremes and their views on Israel specifically. And these guys and gals are not good people, and we've got to call them out. And I'm supporting other people in that Senate race, but that's going to be a critical hold. There's no way we keep or even potentially take the Senate without that Michigan race and without that Maine race for sure.
Yeah. Kevin, the only distinction I'd make in terms of any concerns about, opposition to Israel or anti-Semitic feelings on the right is that there may be commentators, but I don't see elected officials. I don't see leaders of our party voicing that sort of thing, and hopefully never will. And we're
I hope not. But again, a lot of these guys are I would posit some of the thought leaders of the conservative movement, because it's so tailored to commentators in terms of the direction of the party, more so than we don't have really we have the
Perhaps.
Hassan Pikers and those two ladies that have a podcast and stuff like that. But I don't think that there's an intellectual heft to our commentators on the left, frankly.
That we agree on. See, we always try to find what we agree on, Kevin, and that I'll definitely agree on with you. But I guess in terms of thought leaders on the right influencing a sentiment that is anti-Israel, I don't know. The polls still show that the America First MAGA base and conservative Republicans still support Israel by great numbers. So how much of a thought leader are you if no one's following your thought with that perspective? But we'll have to leave it there, Kevin.
Yeah,
Sadly.
I mean, again, we'll see how that plays out, especially with the war in Iran continuing. And I would, I hate to see this become a midterm election issue too. Certainly.
Amen. Kevin Walling, hope to have you on a regular basis. Good to have a reasonable Democrat who I disagree with on, but also who I do agree with on a regular basis. Kevin Walling, thank you, my friend. It is O'Connor and Company. Declare your independence from pain. For 250 years, Americans have believed in one powerful idea, that we were meant to live free to work hard, free to move, free to enjoy life without being held back. But if everyday aches and pains are slowing you down, it might be time to declare your independence from pain. I ran that Marine Corps marathon last year and I had my pain, but Relief Factor just a month later cleared it all up. It's 100% drug-free, research-based, the formula designed to help your body fight inflammation, one of the root causes of pain. It's not a quick fix or a temporary mask. It works from the inside out at the source. Relief Factor was created so people could get back to living life on their terms, walking, working, exercising, and enjoying the moments that matter. This year, as we celebrate 250 years of American independence, take a stand of your own freedom from pain. Try Relief Factor today, just $19.95. Visit relieffactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF.
This right here is confidence in a bottle.
Makes me feel so much more confident than I've ever felt They are some of the hottest videos on social media. Those videos claiming to instantly get rid of bags under your eyes. Annette Figueroa is here to tell us why she says this one is for real.
This one is for real, and I'm so excited. We even have a video, and all he uses is a small amount on a clean, dry face. And what it does is it tightens and lifts the appearance of bags underneath your eyes. And I did this to my father. We were at home, so we applied it to his under eye bags. And let me tell you, we were so excited. In under 10 minutes, they visibly disappeared from view. And now it is literally part of both of our daily routines. And not only does it work on the bags, it works on the appearance of crow's feet, fine lines, and wrinkles.
At our $14.95 price, it's the best way to try Plexiderm and see it work after your first application. Call the number on your screen.
Call 800-832-7865. You're watching Salem News Channel across America.
All right, so for everybody saying, oh, Larry, why do you have a Democrat on the show? We don't like Democrats. No. We're a country of Republicans and Democrats. We're not going to get rid of Democrats. We need to have conversations with Democrats. And the Democrats who don't call you a fascist and a Nazi and, must be destroyed, who don't want to throw you in jail because of your thought crimes, they're the ones we have to talk to. They're the ones we have to elevate and get back to some level of normalcy here, so we can get through a Thanksgiving dinner or a Christmas season with our in-laws that don't agree with us politically. That's what it's all about. And we're going to try to demonstrate that whenever we can. That's why Kevin Walling is welcome here on this program for conversations. That said, Kevin's not an elected official. And sadly, if you're a Democrat and you're an elected official, these days you kind of have to embrace the radical nature of the Democrat base. You have to think that the president is a Nazi and that your political opponents are actually enemies. And you have to embrace the Zoran Mamdani economic model, Marxism. Perfect example, Virginia's brand new governor, Abigail Spanberger. I'm told she's a moderate. The media assured me that she was a moderate. I kept saying during the campaign, what policy does she have right now that is any different than Bernie Sanders or AOC or Zoran Mamdani? And no one could answer that. But she said affordability all the time when she was running. It was all about affordability. You have to make things more affordable. Of course, the government, by definition, cannot make things affordable unless they lower your taxes and reduce regulation. That's the only way the government can make things more affordable, is to get out of the free market. But of course, that's the opposite of what Democrats mean when they say affordability. What they mean is take your taxes, redistribute it, and give you free things that actually end up costing 10 times more than they should. And Abigail Spanberger ran as a moderate, but she's governing as Zoran Mamdani in a pantsuit. There's no such thing as a moderate Democrat right now when it comes to candidates and elected officials. And yesterday, well, Abigail Spanberger tripled down, quadrupled down. She did herself one better. She now wants to tax your gym membership. That's right. You proactively try to get yourself healthy, join a yoga class, join a gym for weightlifting. And now her embrace of affordability means that she wants to tease your membership to a gym and even streaming services. Let's just give you a quick rundown of Abigail Spanberger's moderate Democrat approach to governing in the first 3 months as the governor of the Commonwealth of Virginia. This is how moderate Abigail Spanberger is making things more affordable for Virginians. She has signed a $500 million carbon tax. She has broke her promise to abolish the car tax. She's said now that she wants this new tax on gym memberships and streaming services. She is in favor of a new payroll tax, and she did absolutely nothing as the Republican Party in Richmond, what's left of it, proposed to lower energy bills, cut taxes on tips, abolish the car tax, and a lot more common sense tax cuts. She stood by and let the Democrats in Richmond squash all of those ideas. And let's get back to that no tax on tips. The president of the United States ran on this issue, no tax on tips. It was one of the most popular items of his stump speech and of his campaign promises, and he passed it at the federal level in the big, beautiful bill. But forget about Trump for a second. If you go back and force yourself to watch any of Kamala Harris's rallies or any of her television interviews or any of her stump speeches, such as they were, if you can make it through the cackling at her own jokes and the discussions of Venn diagrams, you'll see Kamala Harris also say, oh, by the way, I want no tax on tips. That's right. Kamala ran on this issue too. She stole it from Trump, of course, because nothing about her is genuine or creative. But they were both running on the idea of no tax on tips. So you can't tell me that Abigail Spanberger in some way is a crazy MAGA right-wing fascist idea that Trump brought to the table. No, it was a Kamala idea. So they passed it at the federal level in the one big beautiful bill. It's popular. Everybody loves it. And then the Democrats in Richmond proactively went out of their way to not make any Virginians eligible for the no tax on tips at the state level. And Abigail Spanberger embraced it, and she signed that as well. So let's just get the scorecard again on affordability. The affordability agenda from your moderate governor. $500 million carbon tax, no efforts to abolish the car tax despite the promise in the campaign. She now wants to tax your gym memberships. So when you're stretching out and pumping iron, you're paying through the nose for it, even above and beyond the membership to the gym. She wants a new payroll tax, which will make employers reduce your salary or your hourly wage because they now got to chip in more on a percentage basis to Richmond, and stood by and allowed all of the Democrats' dreams of higher taxes pass through without any objection. That's what affordability looks like from a Democrat's perspective. Hey, Virginia, how things looking right now? You miss Glenn Youngkin? I bet you do. Please bear this in mind as we talk about the midterm elections, because you're going to hear a whole lot of Democrats talking about affordability. It's all they know. It's been market tested. It's been focus grouped. It's been polled. And they think that all they have to do is say affordability, 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 and they're going to win an election. The fact is, Democrats right now are making things more expensive by a factor of 100 every time they gain power, and they'll do the same thing. There is, sadly, no such thing as a moderate Democrat. I'm Larry O'Connor. It's O'Connor and Company.
At this hour on SNC.
A look at today's top stories.
Reporting on today's biggest political headlines and breaking news.
That's what you need to know at this hour.
On Salem News Channel.
Rolling into hour 3 of O'Connor and Company. You know, the president in his campaign speeches and his rallies during the 24 election, he talked about the drug cartels. He talked about the plague of fentanyl. He talked about the horror of drug addiction, right? He saw it in his own family with his brother, famously as an alcoholic. It's why Trump doesn't touch the stuff. His drug of choice is Diet Coke, and I feel that. Well, how is the president doing on those campaign promises with the drug cartels, with ending fentanyl, and with new initiatives helping individual Americans who have been devastated by drug abuse and drug addiction? He's doing pretty damn well. We're going to get a thorough update from your drug czar, Sarah Carter, direct from the administration, coming up next. Plus, the latest on that shooting involving Secret Service on Capitol Hill. That comes up in the next hour. First, the headlines.
Good morning, and thanks for joining us from the SNC World Headquarters in New York. I'm Deontay Maroney with the top stories we're following at this hour. A man with a gun near the White House has been shot after exchanging fire with Secret Service officers. Authorities say plainclothes agents spotted the suspect Monday afternoon near the Washington Monument. When uniformed officers approached, the man tried to flee and then opened fire. Agents returned fire, striking the suspect. He was taken to the hospital along with a minor who was also shot but is expected to be okay. A federal judge is questioning how a high-profile suspect is being treated in a D.C. jail. The man, accused of trying to storm the White House Correspondents' Dinner and kill President Trump, was placed on strict suicide watch after his arrest. His attorney says he was kept in a padded cell under 24-hour lockdown with constant lighting and repeated searches. Jail officials have since eased those conditions, but the judge says there are still serious concerns about possible punitive treatment. A cruise ship with nearly 150 people on board is stranded off Cape Verde after a suspected virus outbreak. 3 passengers have died and 3 others are seriously ill in what health officials believe may be the hantavirus. The ship was on a polar voyage when the illnesses were first reported. Cape Verde has refused to let the vessel dock, leaving it waiting for assistance at sea. Global health officials are now monitoring the situation as investigations continue. Coming up, Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chair General Dan Kane are holding a briefing from the Pentagon on the U.S.-Israeli conflict with Iran. That sets begin at this 8 o'clock Eastern Time hour. We'll have more on this at the top of next hour. In New York, I'm Deontay Maroney.
At This Hour News, brought to you in part by ReliefFactor.com. Feel the difference.
Listen up, America. We're about to lose the AI arms race, not because of code or chips, but power. AI runs on electricity, and we don't have enough of it. China gets this, building power nonstop while we shut ours down. For years, Democrats canceled pipelines, blocked drilling, and attacked fossil fuels, the very energy AI depends on. That's changing under President Trump, but the fight isn't over. No power means no AI, no progress, no edge. Get the free report now at oilfacts.com. Oilfacts.com, powered by Prairie Operating Company.
Scammers are stealing more money from older Americans than ever before. They're wiping out seniors' life savings, retirement accounts, and financial security. For older Americans and their families, the impact can be devastating. But we have the power to stop these criminals. AARP is fighting for bipartisan common sense solutions to protect older Americans' hard-earned money from scammers. Join us today. Scammers are stealing more money from older Americans than ever before. They're wiping out seniors' life savings, retirement accounts, and financial security. For older Americans and their families, the impact can be devastating. But we have the power to stop these criminals. AARP is fighting for bipartisan common sense solutions to protect older Americans' hard-earned money from scammers. Join us today.
Red, white, and bold. No filters, just loud and clear. Where heavy hitters come together. Live, coast to coast. Uncensored, unwavering, unstoppable. Salem News Channel. Across America. Politics, entertainment. This is O'Connor and Company.
From your nation's capital, I'm Larry O'Connor. Thanks for letting us ride shotgun with you this morning as you go about your daily tasks. We're in this together. Coming up in 30 minutes, we're going to hear from Susan Crabtree, Real Clear Politics. She covers the Secret Service, and we had a shooting yesterday in Washington, D.C. I know that's not usually headline news, but this time the shooting was right outside the White House. It was as the vice president's motorcade was going by, and it involved the Secret Service. So we'll get all the details there and whether this is more signs that this president and his administration are under violent threat. And is this a sign that the Secret Service should be doing more? We'll get into all that with Susan Crabtree, who covers the Secret Service better than anyone. But first, the president promised to do something about fentanyl in this country and all of the smuggling that was happening across the border during the Biden administration, killing untold Americans. He also wanted to go after the drug cartels. He also wanted to help people suffering with addiction in this country and come up with some new ideas to help them release themselves from the stranglehold of substance abuse. And how's he doing on all those fronts? Well, good place to start to answer those questions is with the drug czar. Sarah Carter, longtime friend of this program and investigative journalist who's covered things on the border and with those drug cartels, as well as other big stories. And now she's right there as the drug czar for President Trump. Sarah Carter, always great to talk to you, my friend. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Larry. Thank you for having me on. It's great to be with you. It's an incredible day, and you're absolutely right. Thank God no one was killed yesterday. The situation, of course, for President Trump, we pray for him every day, is dire, and for people in his administration, this is it's really incredible. And thank God he was apprehended, and that the Secret Service is able to do their job. So.
Amen, Sarah. By the way, technically, the title is Director of White House Office of National Drug Control Policy. Do you prefer that, or do you like to be called the drug czar? I mean, drug czar makes it sound like, you know, you're Al Pacino in Scarface, and you're sitting there with piles of money and cocaine behind you. You know, that's not the image we want.
I am not sitting with piles of cocaine behind me unless it is being apprehended by our U.S. Coast Guard or by our law enforcement, Larry. Thank you. And the only time I ever saw that was cocaine near the White House was during the Biden administration. And that is not happening under President Trump. I can tell you that. That is not happening.
Is that part of your... Is that part of the list of duties the president gave you, Sarah? I want to end the cartels. I want to stop the fentanyl, but find out whose coke that was.
Yeah, exactly. And make a citizen's arrest, please. Do it right away. So I got to tell you, you know, I'm working with law enforcement, working with the whole of government approach that we have at the White House, and especially with the DEA, as well as our Homeland Security task forces, and the work that we do in the intelligence community around the globe to target these nefarious organizations, these foreign terrorist organizations, is absolutely incredible because President Trump made a promise. He made a promise to angel families all across this nation. He made a promise to the American people. And frankly, he's protecting the entirety of the global supply chain as he goes after these cartels, as he goes after the precursors, as he puts it on the line. And we delivered this week what I believe to be the most defining and out of the box thinking, a national drug control strategy for President Trump. My office, the Office of National Drug Control Policy, all of the incredible employees that I have there worked day and night since I got there, which a lot of people don't realize. I was confirmed in January, Larry, but I had been there since the year prior as a special advisor to the president for over 8.5 months before I came in and was actually fully confirmed at the office. So they have been working day and night on this. Everybody from the Department of War to folks detailed out of HHS and people within our office that Chief Medical Officer Dr. Ronit Lev, and I can name so many folks. But this really is an incredible promise to the American people.
As you described it, it's a whole of government effort, and I do love that fact. And the president did promise to do this. And I want to break this down. And I'm especially intrigued by the new faith-based initiative for addiction recovery. Let's put that on hold, though. Let's first talk about some of the kinetic action we've seen, because, for the past several decades, we've heard White House after White House, Republican and Democrat, some presidents that I have great respect and admiration for, who talked about the war on drugs. But the war is not on drugs. The war is on drug dealers. The war is on drug cartels. These are paramilitary groups who are corrupt. And this president, with you as their drug czar, it seems like this whole of government approach seems very proactive. It's not defensive and not reacting when these criminals and these gangs bring the drugs in here. You guys are going after them. Sort of flesh that out for me and what success you've seen so far.
Well, absolutely. We are on the offensive, not on the defensive. When we're looking at both dealing with the cartels, the foreign terrorist organizations, all of their enablers, that means the people that are helping them move the money, the in-between folks, right? As well as the precursors coming into this country. We're focused on the supply chain. How do we clean that supply chain so that these precursors that help the cartels create the fentanyl that we have seen that has poisoned millions of our citizens and taken the lives of so many of our countrymen, how do we stop that before it reaches our shores? So we are absolutely on the offensive layer, and we are doing that in a number of ways through artificial intelligence, technology, human intelligence. We are not giving them room to breathe. And this is very important. The cartels have been allowed to amass over the last 50 years. I say this is America's longest war, Larry. Not Afghanistan. I was there in Afghanistan covering the war. And that in and of itself, over 20 years, seemed very long. This has been more than 50 years of the United States, yes, not fighting a war on drugs, but fighting terrorists. And when the United States did not put that first, say, we're going to go out on the offensive, we allowed these cartels and the surrounding allies to grow into these massive military shadow government operations that have amassed trillions, hundreds of billions, and trillions of dollars. We can't even begin to count how much money some of these cartels have made. So we are hitting them where it hurts. We're hitting them in their homeland.
Sarah,
we are not allowing them to operate. Yep.
Yeah, well, I was just going to say, Sarah, from my perspective, it has seemed over those decades that you just described that the leaders of the foreign countries where these cartels come from have been on the take, frankly, that they're part of the problem and they haven't cooperated with our efforts. We see what happened to the dictator of Venezuela, Mr. Maduro, as he became a sort of a problem with regard to the operations and the terrorists he was sending over here. Can you tell us, are things better now? Do we have partners in Mexico City? Do we have partners in Bogota to actually help us with these efforts as well? Or are those governments also part of the problem?
Look, they're part of the problem. They're part of the solution. They're both. Right now, we saw enormous cooperation. Yeah, exactly. From the Defensa in Mexico when we went after El Mencho, the United States shared information. This is CJ&G, one of the most notorious cartels in Mexico that was moving so much fentanyl and other narcotics into our country. We targeted his leadership. He was called the ghost for a reason because he was always on the move and nobody could ever lay eyes on him. We got actionable intelligence on him and the Mexican government followed through and they killed him. So the Mexican government, as well as governments throughout the Western Hemisphere, know that we have a president that means what he says. And he carries this big stick, right? Peace through strength. And so they saw what happened to Maduro and they are cooperating. Right now, I don't know if you heard the news, Larry, but we have indictments on Mexican politicians. This is huge. You know, in Sinaloa, the Sinaloa governor, Ruben Rocha, right now, we have a warrant out for him. I hear that he is extraordinarily nervous, and so are a number of other politicians who are listed on those warrants. And believe me, they know that we mean business. So they're on the run. And we're looking at cooperating with people throughout the Hem. But more importantly, we want to be there as well for all those people who are suffering throughout the nation, the people that are in recovery or need treatment. So we're doing that too, and we have revolutionary approaches to that as well.
Yeah. In fact, Sarah, I only got like a minute left, but flesh into that, the faith-based initiatives you've got right now to help people with recovery.
Well, look, for the first time, this administration put up front and center faith and recovery and treatment. That's throughout the United States. We have faith-based treatment and recovery. More than 83% of Americans believe in a higher power other than themselves, and we've seen the success of that. So we are doing our outreach. We are working very closely with faith-based communities. We held our first roundtable with leaders in all faiths throughout the United States, representing all faiths, and we are putting that front and center when we give the tools and resources that our families will need to fight back, Larry.
So it's so good to hear. Anybody who has ever known someone in their life who has suffered from addiction or have suffered it themselves, they know that the most effective tool are these 12-step programs that are based in faith, and our government needs to cooperate with those programs, not eliminate them from the conversation. Sarah Carter, you're a force of nature, always have been, and now you're working for the Trump administration. Listen, we need you to come and sit in with us for the whole show and co-host with me sometime. Can we make that happen? Let's do it.
I would absolutely love it. Thank you.
Get it. It's O'Connor and Company.
Do you suffer in pain? Are you stiff, tense, or less active than before? Introducing the EasyWell Remedy Massage System that combines the incredible effects of vibrational therapy, targeted deep tissue shiatsu massage, plus soothing infrared heat. A triple fusion of therapeutic experiences. Full body vibrational therapy increases blood circulation and reduces inflammation. Look at these beads moving from the powerful vibrational motors.
It's like 1,000 little fingers just vibrating my body from head to toe.
Infrared heat penetrates deep to reduce pain, soothe, and relax.
Remedy gets in there and helps deal with the source of the pain, so you feel much better.
The Ultra Shiatsu pillow with 6 infrared heated nodes mimics a professional massage. Plus, it's detachable for deep relief anywhere you need it.
It's just something that you're gonna have to feel for yourself.
Experience the true remedy for your pain and stiffness. Call now.
Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit LauraLikesGold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's LauraLikesGold.com. Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit lauralikesgold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's lauralikesgold.com. Well, you know me. I believe in freedom, independence, and the values that built this country. Now, I'll be the first to say President Trump has taken the steps towards reviving our economy. But inflation, trade deficits, and global uncertainty are hitting hardworking Americans where it hurts. Here's the truth. I refuse to let these hidden forces decide my future. That's why I help protect my wealth with real assets, physical gold and silver. For generations, these metals have held value, no matter who's in office or what the markets do. To me, gold and silver mean independence, not just for today, but for tomorrow. If you want the peace of mind I found, it's time to take action. I've partnered with the #1 rated precious metals company, Goldco, and right now they're offering first-time gold buyers a rebate of up to 10% in bonus silver on qualified accounts. Visit lauralikesgold.com to learn how to help safeguard your savings the way I do. That's lauralikesgold.com.
Larry O'Connor here on O'Connor and Company. My longtime listeners know that I spent the bulk of my life in Southern California. Some of my kids still live out there. I love California. I do. That's why it breaks my heart to see what's happened to it. I lived in Los Angeles, too, and there's a mayoral race going on. Karen Bass wants to be reelected as mayor, and Spencer Pratt is really the leading challenger, former reality TV star. And great news for Spencer Pratt yesterday in this upstart mayoral race of his. He got some brilliant news in the form of an endorsement from Kamala Harris. Don't get me wrong. Kamala Harris did not endorse Spencer Pratt. No, it's great news for Spencer Pratt that Kamala Harris endorsed Karen Bass because, you know, one loser endorses another loser. Even in Los Angeles, you can smell the fear a mile away if you can smell it over the stench of the criminal vagrants living and urinating on the streets. Kamala Harris said that she was endorsing Karen Bass because, and I'm quoting now, she stamped out crime and homelessness. Really? Stamped out crime and homelessness? Let's take a look at Spencer Pratt's response to that announcement. It was eloquent, brilliant, and silent. He just showed this video of homeless tents and encampments all throughout the city of Los Angeles. It's disgusting. It's despicable. It's exactly what Los Angeles continues to be under Karen Bass. If this is stamping out homelessness, well, I'd hate to see what letting homelessness run rampant in the streets are. Look at, there's sidewalks in Los Angeles that you cannot walk down because it is completely overtaken by encampments, by tents from people living and on the sidewalks. They don't have the right to do that. And by the way, it's horrible for them. If you really feel compassion for them, you will want to give them help and get them off the streets. It dovetails perfectly with the conversation we just had with drug czar Sarah Carter. Don't take a back seat to these people on compassion. You want to help them. And by the way, you have compassion for the tax-paying families who deserve to walk down a sidewalk or go to a public park without being threatened or disturbed or violated by people breaking the law, like these criminal vagrants. She has not stamped out homelessness. And well, there's another reason why Spencer Pratt is running for mayor, because Karen Bass has neglected him and his neighbors in the Palisades after their homes burned down. Take a listen to this. This is his wife, Heidi Montag, talking on a podcast about what happened to her, to Spencer, and to their family.
They say it takes a year for grief, right? To really like settle in your brain and your body and everything. And that's so true. That's definitely what I experienced. I know I get so sad about it, but you work so hard, right, for everything in your home, and you love everything in your home, and it's so curated, your childhood things, your children's things, and their little clay pots they bring home. You know, all of our friends live there. Our community, Spencer grew up in the Palisades. He had been there his whole life. Spencer was so excited, like, your songs are going viral and we're going to be able to rebuild and the community is getting behind us. And I'm saying to him, it doesn't translate like that. It's not the way it used to be in the music industry. It's pennies. I was like, honey, it's a great moment and I'm so excited for it, but this is not going to rebuild our house. I'm scrambling to get my kids in school. I'm like, I'm enrolling them. That's what I'm focused on. I'm focused on my 3-year-old saying he's gonna push our house back up, and like he still says that like every day. You know, Spencer wasn't sleeping because he was so like, I gotta keep pumping the music and this and that. And I finally said to him, I'm like, you need to stop. You haven't slept in like a week and a half. You've had like an hour of sleep. I was like, if you don't sleep and you don't start,
it's devastating, and it's why he's running for mayor, because the government has not done anything. They have not built any of these homes or rebuilt them. And by the way, take a look. Spencer Pratt, this upstart marketing campaign that he's doing to run for mayor, he's put out a video showing you what his new house looks like. It's a camper that they're living in on the property where their home burnt down. Can we see that? It's a yeah. I mean, he's really good at making viral videos, and it's got the soundtrack, and it's just this one-room camper with one toilet and a family of God knows how many living in it on top of each other. And here's the thing. Karen Bass is now saying that Ms. Montag and Mr. Pratt, they're exploiting people's grief for political purposes. Exploiting people's grief. It's their grief. And the grief they're feeling is because of what LA Mayor Karen Bass has inflicted upon them. And she continues to be heartless. She doesn't care about people who have lost their homes, and she's done nothing to get the city of Los Angeles to be able to respond. It's this corrupt bureaucracy that she oversees. And I got to tell you, I think Pratt's got a chance. We're going to try to get him on the program, hear from him directly. There's more to come on that Secret Service shooting in our nation's capital. We'll get to it next on O'Connor and Company.
No safe spaces, no pulling punches. It's the Mike Gallagher Show.
Join us for a fast-paced, unpredictable, entertaining exploration of breaking news and what to make of it. The Mike Gallagher Show on Salem News Channel.
From the SNC Weather Center, I'm meteorologist Clay Osterly. Chance for severe weather today across the Mid-South through Dallas. Memphis, Little Rock is going to be included in that as well. And we're also going to see a chance of a couple of severe thunderstorms up across the Northeast from Watertown, New York, up to Burlington, Vermont. And both of these areas could see a chance for some tornadoes, some damaging wind, and some hail. But it will be more likely from Dallas up through Little Rock and into the mid-Tennessee Valley. Now, we're also tracking a chance of some non-severe thunderstorms across much of the West, extending through the Midwest and into the Northeast, and also for South Florida. We're also looking at a chance, though, of some snow. Yeah, it is May, but it's still definitely possible up in the highlands, and we're seeing that across the Rockies, and even Denver, the metro area, could get in on the snow. We're looking at anywhere between 3 to 8 inches of snowfall possible at lower levels, with up to 24 in the mountains. I'm meteorologist Clay Osterly, Salem News Channel.
Watch weather.
Don't get left out in the rain. Get an accurate and personalized weather consultation for any event by scheduling a call with Storm Guides. Go to stormguides.live and schedule your call today. Storm Guides, the calm in the storm.
You're watching Salem News Channel across America.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most sought-after anti-aging products available today. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags in as little as 10 minutes. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects will last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results.
Look at this one under-eye bag. It's gone.
I've tried it all, and then I found Plexiderm, and this happened.
The best news, in this super inflated economy, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95 and free shipping. So don't wait. Just call the number on your screen.
Call 800-826-0172.
Good morning, Larry O'Connor, Anna O'Connor, and company. Coming up in a bit, Luke Rosiak, investigative reporter based out of Northern Virginia. He's a regular on this program and friend of the show. He's got a brand new expose, investigative report at the Daily Wire, all about more corruption, more Medicaid corruption, home health care corruption to the tunes of, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars in the state of Ohio that just goes unchecked, apparently. We'll dive into the details of that story coming up in just a bit. First, though, happy to be joined by Real Clear Politics investigative reporter Susan Crabtree. She's won the Dow Prize for her investigative report in the Secret Service operations at the attempted assassination of Donald Trump in Butler, Pennsylvania. And she continues to work those sources in the Secret Service to discuss publicly concerns, and not just in the service, but also concerns about the president's safety. Susan, thanks for joining us. Always good to talk with you.
Wonderful to be with you, Larry.
By the way, I'd be remiss in mentioning you're also the author of Fool's Gold, a great expose of the Democrats in the state of California, Gavin Newsom, Kamala Harris. So we just talked about the mayor's race in Los Angeles. And anyone who wants to know what's going on in California needs to read Fool's Gold. All right, so first of all, I want to get into the developments in the arraignment and the case against the would-be assassination from the White House Correspondents' Dinner. That's kind of a big story if you're covering the Secret Service. While you're unpacking that yesterday, boom, we have shots fired involving the Secret Service just off the ellipse, basically the president's backyard in the District of Columbia. What happened yesterday exactly? When did it happen? And what exactly was the proximity of the vice president's motorcade based on what you know?
Well, at about 3:30 p.m., the president was having a business meeting, and there were shots fired. They evacuated the press from the lawn, put them into the press briefing room, and all of a sudden, I started getting reports that there was gunfire involved, that there was a shooter, and someone was shot, and the man was armed. Of course, the Secret Service agents and officers are vigilant right now. They are just ready and on alert because of what happened at the White House Correspondents' Dinner. They do not want to say that they have, that they are not doing their job to their full capacity. And strangely enough, Matt Quinn, the deputy director, had a press conference, a very hastily convened press conference, and mentioned that the vice president's motorcade had just gone through that area. But he said it wasn't this individual, the suspect wasn't targeting the motorcade in any way. But we do know that a teenager was grazed by one of the bullets. We don't know exactly whether it was the suspect's bullet or one of the Secret Service officers that were involved.
Wow.
The deputy director does say he believes it was the suspect's bullet.
So, Susan Crabtree, do we know for certain, what is the official report here? Who opened fire first? Did this suspect start shooting at Secret Service agents or vice versa?
Matt Quinn, the deputy director, said that the subject, they were encountering him, they were confronting him because he looked suspicious and he had an outline of some type of firearm on him that they recognize. And there's these counter surveillance units that go out and they're roving and they're looking for these types of suspicious activity in and around the White House perimeter. And this time it was a little bit farther off. It was on Independence and 15th, which is near the Washington Monument. And so they encountered this individual. He fled on foot a little bit, and then we are told by the deputy director that he fired first.
Okay. So, living in Washington, you hear about a lot of suspicious activities and Secret Service engagement. I remember during the Obama administration, and in fact, I think that's the first time we ever interviewed you, Susan Crabtree. We had this string of people who were trying to climb the fence and run the lawn. In fact, one person actually made it into the mansion, if I remember right. So we're sort of used to the Secret Service dealing with nutbags around the White House. When weapons are involved and shots are fired, that's a really, really big deal. So do I understand right? You just said it was the deputy director of the Secret Service that delivered the press conference. Wouldn't this be something that the director would handle, considering how important it is and involved a firearm and the vice president's motorcade and the proximity to the White House?
One would think, but Sean Curran has not liked the media part of his job, and he has sort of held back, and he hasn't done very much media at all. He did a very friendly Lara Trump interviews and Sean Hannity. And then last week we saw him after the White House Correspondents' Dinner incident go on Will Cain, and I believe he made a misstatement there, and it was widely ridiculed. I wrote about it, that it was set up perfectly, that particular magnetometer, even though it was being disassembled at the time, the security was set up perfectly for that dinner. And then you saw this sort of, everybody just was astounded that that's what the Secret Service director said. So I don't know if he was briefing the president at the time or what was happening when Matt Quinn convened this quickly. It was really a hastily convened press conference right there on at the Washington Monument instead of at their headquarters. Not very many press attended it. Thankfully, C-SPAN was there, so I could review the video carefully afterwards. But yeah, this is strange that Sean Curran is not the public face of the Secret Service. And even internally, I'm told, the emails usually come from Matt Quinn. We don't know why that Sean Curran is not really exerting the strongest leadership that he could within that agency, and at least in a public or, outwardly facing way with his own rank and file.
Susan, there were so many questions after Butler and then after the golf course incident, and now after this incident, the White House Correspondents' Dinner. Now we've got this incident, although it seems as though the Secret Service seemed to really effectively neutralize this potential threat that happened yesterday. But there are ongoing questions about the Secret Service and the leadership. And of course, there was famously a leadership shift and change after the Butler assassination attempt. Even Democrats had lost confidence with the then director. You're now reporting something that it shocked me, and maybe you can unpack this for me. I just assumed that Secret Service, this elite force in Washington, D.C., and these men and women are willing to take a bullet on behalf of the president and the first lady and the families and the chain of command there in the executive branch. Is it true that they really only get 30 minutes of training a year? Is that specific to one item or one sort of practice that they engage in? I just assumed there was ongoing training all the time about changes of threats and various disciplines that they have to stay up to date on, like the military or like a regular police force. Only 30 minutes? What is that all about?
Well, I had Jason Chaffetz, the former chairman of the House Oversight Committee that did a lot of these hearings during the Obama years, on my podcast on Background. And he said that he's not talking about the elite forces that we saw come out with the guns pointed towards the dinner. Guests, unfortunately, they did their job at the White House Correspondents' Dinner, but he's not talking about the counter assault teams. They practice a lot.
Okay.
He's not talking about the counter snipers, but he is talking about the rank and file that do a lot of their job is post standing. And as you know, it's a very boring job until it isn't, right? And so they do qualify for their firearms, and then they requalify, but they don't train like they used to on a monthly basis. They don't spend a lot of time in the range. This is true. And of course, Jason Chaffetz, he's number one source on this, in my estimation. He did such a good job, and he was in Congress just really investigating the Secret Service and holding them to account like we haven't seen since.
Yeah. Well, and listen, that is an important distinction, and thank you for clearing that up. But you would think that the rank and file who stand post should probably have a little more range time and a little more training than just 30 minutes a year. Has the Secret Service responded to that report yet?
They stopped responding to me in December when I reported on an FBI raid of a Secret Service agent's home. I think it's actually the press corps is allowing them to get away with this because, as you know, Larry, it's all about access in the press corps. But the FBI was raiding the Secret Service home for a tax scheme. There are so many problems with the Secret Service. And their number one problem is manpower and hiring issues. They're down about 1,000 agents, and they're just not using the type of vetting that you would expect. In fact, I was originally supposed to be reporting yesterday when this gunfire incident happened on a Secret Service agent who was unfortunately was arrested in Doral at a DoubleTree, naked and pleasuring himself in a hotel room.
What?
That was happening yesterday morning and I was getting the affidavit. I had the affidavit of the arrest. Yeah. So this is 100% accurate, and I was astounded that it was.
Unbelievable.
And so yes, it's a hiring and a manpower issue at the Secret Service right now, and they're not even putting in the mental health tests that they need to. Like most police departments around the country, they have a mental health screen for Secret Service agents that would screen out some of these, bad actors, and that we've seen over and over and over again in my reporting and Jason Chaffetz's investigations.
Well, and listen, you always wade into a minefield here when you start raising questions and you say, oh, you don't support the Secret Service and you're against. No, we revere the Secret Service. We also know that this president, unlike any other president in my lifetime, faces very real existential threats. And so we want the best of the best. We want the elite, and we want this agency run properly to do its job, to do what it's supposed to do. That doesn't mean that many of these elite agents aren't doing that, but they need help, they need support, and they need leadership to be able to get that done. It's maddening, frankly. Susan, if I could just pivot quickly, the latest on the White House Correspondents Association event. The suspect had his day in court yesterday. He's under suicide watch, and it seemed like the judge here was apologizing for him being on suicide watch. Anybody who charges into a room full of armed Secret Service agents trying to open fire, he's got a death wish. Clearly, that was, suicide by cop. Why wouldn't he be on suicide watch? And what's with this judge?
Yeah, the judge just revealed himself to be just the typical liberal judge. And, it's interesting to me that you have this in his manifesto. He's saying if the Secret Service agents do their job, you will not be around to ask me questions about this. And he, marveled at the fact that the security was so lax. So, he himself is saying he was willing to commit suicide over this. And so why would the judge then apologize to him? He needs to, this is just a lack of vigilance and soft on crime policies of DC, unfortunately.
That judge, the U.S. Attorney, Judge Janine, needs to move for this judge to be removed. You're right. He revealed himself. And that manifesto, since it had that language in it, it's basically a suicide note. Susan Crabtree, thank you for all these stories. Thanks for unpacking it. We'll talk to you again. I appreciate it. Susan Crabtree of Real Clear Politics. When it comes to supplements, there are two things that matter most. It works and you can trust it. Both are absolutely essential. Relief Factor offers a quick start option. They actually lose money on this offer, but they do it so people can try it for themselves and experience just how much it can improve their lives. More than 1 million people have tried Relief Factor, and about 70% go on to order more. The creator of Relief Factor returned home from Vietnam as a combat veteran wounded multiple times. He decided to become a doctor simply to help people, to heal them. He created Relief Factor originally to just help his patients with pain and do it drug-free. When he saw how well it worked, he decided to make it available for everyone. I'm glad he did, because after running my first marathon this last year, I was in pain. I took Relief Factor, and boy, did it give me relief for my pain. Try the 3-week quick start today and see how it can work for you. Go to relieffactor.com or call 800-4RELIEF. 800-4RELIEF.
Would you rather be stuck in a foreign hospital or be moved to a hospital at home? If your security is threatened while traveling, do you have someone to call? Hi, I'm Kevin McCullough, and I'll never be without MedJet, air medical transport, and security response membership. Global protection. Enroll prior to travel.
The secret is out. With millions of younger-looking customers across the country, Plexiderm is one of the most sought-after anti-aging products available today. Influencers love it, magazines feature it, and people just can't get enough of it. As a matter of fact, Elle magazine gave it an Editor's Choice Award as Best Instant Wrinkle Filler for 2025. Plexiderm reduces the appearance of fine lines, wrinkles, and those dreaded under-eye bags in as little as 10 minutes. So yes, you can look years younger in minutes, and the effects will last for hours. No surgery, no gimmicks, just results.
Look at this one under eye bag. It's gone.
I've tried it all, and then I found Plexiderm, and this happened.
The best news, in this super inflated economy, you can try Plexiderm for only $14.95 and free shipping. So don't wait. Just call the number on your screen.
Call 800-826-0172. You're watching Salem News Channel across America.
It's 51 minutes after the hour. O'Connor Company here. Larry O'Connor, good morning. Good Tuesday to you. Thanks for letting us sort of drive along with you today and ride shotgun as you get the kids out where they need to go, or you get yourself out where you need to go. Or, by the way, if you're just still at home and rubbing the sleep out of your eyes and drinking your coffee, we are thrilled to be a part of your morning routine. Hopefully, you're not finding it routine, though. We're trying to mix things up and let you know exactly what's going on here in your nation's capital and the rest of the country. And one thing that's happening everywhere, but it comes all the way back to Washington, D.C., is fraud. You know, we have debates over the budget all the time, and we always hear politicians in Washington say, well, we're going to make up the difference with waste, fraud, and abuse. We're going to find waste, fraud, and abuse. Don't worry, we'll take care of waste, fraud, and abuse. And for the first time in my lifetime, we've got a president who's actually trying to cut waste, fraud, and abuse. Remember the whole Doge initiative that we had at the beginning of this administration? And look what happened to Elon Musk and all the dudes from Doge for their troubles. They got run out of town. They got demonized. The left was trying to firebomb Tesla dealerships. They don't want to get rid of waste, fraud, and abuse because, well, some people are getting rich off of it. And those people who are getting rich all seem to be connected to politicians. You've seen Nick Shirley's exposés in Minneapolis. You've seen Walter Kurt's exposés in Columbus, Ohio, and he's now working out of Michigan for it. You've seen even CBS News has found waste, fraud, and abuse in California, and all the politicians are circling the wagons and trying to protect themselves and their interests. But here's the latest. One of our favorites on this program, friend of the show, he's going to be on, I think, Thursday or Friday to give us the full rundown on this story because he's breaking it out every day this week over at Daily Wire. This is a multi-part series, and once it's all rolled out, he's going to come and join us and talk about it for a full half hour. He's Luke Rosiak, investigative reporter for the Daily Wire, and yesterday he broke this story called Medicaid Millionaires. The Medicaid money trail leads somewhere you won't like, and Luke Rosiak and the Daily Wire have receipts. Let me give you a quick rundown on there. Actually, do we have Luke in his own voice here on one of his selfie videos there, social media? Yeah, let's take a look at Luke giving you an overview of what he found in his investigation in Ohio.
No windows on the outside helps hide the fact that there's nobody inside. But when you go in, it's really obvious. The place is deserted. It's downright creepy. There is no one in any of the offices. They're dark. Curtains are drawn. Some of them have notes that are like, we'll be back in a few minutes. And you can tell it's been that way for months.
Yeah, remember welfare queens Ronald Reagan talked about when he was running for office in 1980? Well, as Luke Rosiak puts it, the new welfare queens aren't the recipients whose low incomes qualify them for poverty programs. They're the companies getting rich off them. Driving down Cleveland Avenue, in less than 40 seconds, you come across endless home health companies. Capital Home Health, Continental Home Health, Dynamic Home Health Care, Ohio Senior Home Health Care. Entire buildings throughout the city are filled entirely with what appear to be identical businesses. Pick the owner of a Columbus home health care company at random and look them up in the public records, and you're likely to go down an endless rabbit hole. Years of unpaid taxes and debts, sometimes criminal records, an astonishing number of LLCs created in other industries, as if the millions they make from Medicaid are just a big side gig. The business model is simple. A 40-year-old Somali immigrant gets paid for spending time with and maybe cooking for his own 65-year-old mother. The middleman is one of thousands of home health firms that have the NPI number necessary to bill Medicaid. The 40-year-old becomes an employee of that company, but has no clients other than his own mother. There's no way to verify whether he actually even provided the services unless his own mother is willing to testify against him. It's fraud. It's a scam. And Democrats, for the most part, are the ones protecting them. Dr. Oz, who oversees these programs and the payouts of these programs through the states, he also commented on this. We have a video from Dr. Oz, gentlemen. Or is that, yeah, let's see what Dr. Oz had to say about this. By the way, well, go ahead. Let's go with Dr. Oz, and then we'll pick it up.
Let's get into the root cause of this problem. Nobody was paying attention. And when thieves steal, they corrupt the entire society. So these busts that you're witnessing here, conducted by Billy Asile, who's the U.S. attorney out there, are the first major efforts to show the people of Los Angeles that we are serious about this problem, which is one.
That's Dr. Oz following up and reporting on what happened out in Los Angeles after Nick Shirley and, to their credit, CBS News did some door knocking and found these fraudulent businesses. Exactly what Luke Rosiak found. He found a politician who founded an $11 million home health care company that he runs part-time. That's a nice side gig. He doesn't even include it in his political biography. You'd think you'd brag about something like that. A woman who had a janitorial LLC but reinvented it as a health provider, billing Medicaid $100,000 the first month it entered the healthcare industry. A man who went to prison for Medicaid fraud but told the government he was too broke to pay restitution while his neighbors and associates preside over a poverty program empire, and an accountant who lost his license for stealing public funds, then opened a $7 million home health care company using the address of a convicted money launderer's teenage son. And on and on and on and on, all funded by the government. And this is a red state, by the way. Everyone says, oh, you're just picking on Minnesota. You're just picking on California. No, Governor DeWine, where are you? This is happening in Ohio as well. It's happening everywhere. And you know it's happening everywhere. And no one cares. They set up these programs. They fund them to the millions and millions and tens and hundreds of millions. And then nobody actually makes sure that you're getting robbed blind. And then they come back and tell you they're out of money. They need more tax dollars from you. They need more programs. And if you dare to say, hey, maybe we should stop, wasting the money that we've given you already, they say that you want grandma to die and you want children to go without health care. It's an outrage. And Vice President Vance saw this story and he says he's